Hi everyone, welcome back to Radio Night Crime. Before you drift off, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. If you're enjoying the stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's relax and jump into tonight's case. Story 1. On June 26, 2011, a young woman named Lauren Giddings locked herself in her apartment to cram for an upcoming exam. Days later, when her family couldn't reach her, they alerted the police. At first, the signs seemed reassuring. Her door was still locked, her car sat untouched in the parking lot, and there were no broken windows or obvious signs of forced entry. But within hours of the search, investigators made a chilling discovery. A woman's upper torso, severed and discarded in a nearby dumpster. So what happened to Lauren? How could a tragedy unfold without a single trace of a break-in, or, at least to the naked eye, any DNA evidence left in her apartment? You're watching True Crime in the World, where we unravel the most perplexing mysteries and dive into the most gripping stories. In today's episode, we'll explore the disappearance of Lauren Giddings and the tragic conclusion that followed. As always, before we delve into the enigma of this case, our story unfolds in Macon, Georgia, a city of about 150,000 people, largely a hub for students due to its numerous high schools and colleges, including Mercer University and Middle Georgia State University. At the heart of this case is Lauren Giddings, a 27-year-old law student at Mercer University. Born on April 18, 1984, Lauren was the eldest child of Karen and Bill Giddings. Initially, her ambitions leaned toward medicine, but at the last minute, she pivoted, moving to the American South to pursue law at Mercer. Lauren was sharp with an impressive academic record. Before enrolling at Mercer, she earned a bachelor's degree in political science and religious studies from a Georgia university. She later relocated to Macon, embarking on a new chapter. Her parents beamed with pride. Lauren was the first in their family to attend college and accumulate such an array of credentials. Aspiring to become a lawyer, Lauren landed an internship at a law firm before the school year began. There, her colleagues nicknamed her Pink Wednesday for her penchant for vibrant dresses, a stark contrast to the somber suits typical of attorneys. She even sparked a quirky office tradition. On Wednesdays, everyone was encouraged to wear something colorful. In 2008, to attend Mercer University, Lauren moved into Barrister Hall, a quintessentially American apartment complex where each unit opens directly to the outside, much like a motel. Lauren settled in comfortably, but one thing gnawed at her. Lately, she felt an unsettling presence, as though someone was watching her from the shadows. She couldn't quite pinpoint why, whether it was her imagination or something more sinister, but the sensation of being observed haunted her. She even gave this mysterious figure a nickname, the Macon Stalker. Though she tried to brush it off with humor, Lauren had experienced genuinely terrifying moments. Recently, she confided in her family that she suspected someone had slipped into her apartment and left unnoticed. She was certain she'd heard the front door softly click shut while she was studying at her computer. On another occasion, gripped by fear while alone, she grabbed a kitchen knife, ready to defend herself. Yet she never caught a glimpse of this so-called Macon Stalker. Over time, Lauren began to wonder if her unease stemmed from studying too many criminal cases in her law program. She mentioned these concerns in an email to her boyfriend, David Van Diver, on Saturday night, June 25th, around 10 p.m. Even in 2011, Lauren preferred email to communicate with him. In the message, she admitted she still felt watched, but assured him everything else was fine. That weekend, she planned to hunker down for her usual study marathon, going off the grid with her phone off until Sunday evening. If David didn't hear from her, she wrote, he shouldn't worry. She even jokingly told him not to imagine her being kidnapped or harmed in her apartment's bathtub. It seemed unthinkable. Sunday passed without incident. But by Monday, when Lauren was expected to resurface for classes, she didn't respond to messages from her younger sister, Caitlin. Concerned, Caitlin texted and called, but got only voicemail. Trying not to overreact, she waited, though unease gnawed at her. By Wednesday, Lauren's childhood friend, Katie O'Hare, also tried reaching her, to no avail. David, Meanwhile, received word from Lauren's family. He confirmed he hadn't heard from her since that Saturday email. But he downplayed their concerns, noting Lauren's habit of going radio silent during intense study sessions. It was how she stayed so focused, he said. Her absolute dedication mode. David knew Lauren well. They'd been dating since 2007, when she interned at a law firm. By 2011, their relationship had spanned 4 years. David wasn't a young student. He was a seasoned lawyer, 20 years Lauren's senior. Theirs was an on-again, off-again romance. Passionate but punctuated by breakups. Despite the age gap, the American media didn't dwell on it, describing David as a successful attorney and Lauren as an ambitious young woman. Though David reassured Lauren's family that her silence was normal, her father, Bill, wasn't convinced. When he learned his daughter had been unreachable for days, he drove to her apartment complex. In the early hours of June 30th, around 1 a.m., Bill arrived with Caitlin. They were met with a mix of confusion and tentative relief. There were no signs of a break-in. Lauren's door was locked, her windows intact, her car still parked outside. Yet she didn't answer when they knocked. Using a spare key Lauren had given them, Caitlin and Bill entered the apartment. Inside, they found nothing amiss. The space was tidy, everything in its place with a faint, pleasant scent lingering. It was as if Lauren had vanished into thin air. That same morning, the family contacted the police. Friends were notified, and volunteers quickly joined the search. Neighbors in Lauren's building reported hearing nothing unusual. David arrived, too, bringing along friends to assist. Local and media began covering the mysterious disappearance of a female student from a campus apartment complex. Investigators started questioning passersby, including one of Lauren's close neighbors, Stephen McDaniel, who shared a few details about her. The search progressed smoothly until a shocking revelation came to light. June 30th coincided with the area's trash collection day. But, with so many people gathered at the complex searching for Lauren, the garbage truck couldn't reach its usual pickup spot. As a result, a large dumpster was left behind, and one investigator decided to inspect it. That morning, the officer was hit by a putrid stench emanating from the bin. Peering inside, he discovered a woman's upper torso, tightly wrapped in plastic. No head, no arms, no legs, just a torso, nothing more. The investigation immediately escalated, shifting from a missing person case to a potential homicide, though the remains hadn't yet been confirmed as Lauren's. But the coincidence was chilling. A young woman had vanished from this complex, and now a female torso was found in the same location. Police sprayed luminol across Lauren's apartment, from floor to ceiling, to detect any traces of blood. In the bathroom, the chemical glowed, revealing a horrifying truth. The room was awash in bloodstains, from top to bottom, even pooling at the base of the bathtub. The killer had tried to clean up, but not thoroughly enough. It became clear that Lauren's body had been dismembered in that very bathtub. Police brought in K-9 units to sniff out any lingering traces of Lauren's scent. As expected, the dogs picked up her trail near a closet. Inside, officers found a blood-soaked bedsheet and a hacksaw, meticulously cleaned, but still bearing faint reddish stains in its crevices. The dogs didn't stop there. They moved to the front door, signaling to go outside, and led investigators to the apartment next door, the home of Lauren's neighbor, Stephen McDaniel. This was the same man who had appeared in news reports, visibly distraught upon learning of the torso's discovery. Let's pause for a moment. Lauren and Stephen were neighbors, so her scent lingering near his door wasn't entirely surprising. But what raised eyebrows was Stephen's peculiar demeanor. So what really happened to Lauren? The evidence was pointing in a new direction, a suspicious neighbor. The police began by digging into Lauren's past, searching for any enemies she might have had. Her time at Mercer University painted a picture of a beloved student. Lauren was active in campus clubs, jogged with a tight-knit group of friends, attended church regularly, and often hosted cozy dinners at her apartment. Warm evenings where she cooked to help her friends unwind after grueling study sessions. Everyone knew law school was a grueling journey, yet Lauren was determined to see those around her succeed, as much as she did. A thorough review turned up no accusations or serious conflicts involving her. Even her fiancé, David, seemed above suspicion. The couple had plans to marry once Lauren settled into her career. Her life appeared remarkably stable. Even within her family, there were no red flags. Lauren was close with her 3 younger sisters, who described her as a vibrant, inspiring figure, a role model they looked up to. On the night of her disappearance, and likely the night of her murder that Saturday, Lauren sent an email to David. Before diving into her intense study lockdown, she spent the evening relaxing with friends. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. As for her neighbor, Stephen, Lauren knew him well. They had worked at the same company, attended the same university, and even shared classes. In short, they were 2 young students who had once been good friends. But friendships between men can be complicated. Stephen had made advances toward Lauren, hoping for something more, but she gently rebuffed him, making it clear she wanted only friendship. Investigators later learned from Lauren's family that she had recently felt watched, yet she had never laid eyes on the figure she dubbed the Macon Stalker. This lead was taken seriously, but without a description of the mysterious figure, it was hard to pursue further. Still, the investigation quickly zeroed in on one person, the neighbor, Stephen. He adamantly refused to let police search his apartment without an official warrant, citing his strict adherence to the law. He didn't oppose a cursory check, but insisted on proper legal documentation for anything thorough. To ease tensions and prove he wasn't some deranged recluse hiding bodies in his closet, Stephen allowed a brief 5-minute walkthrough of his apartment. The result? Nothing suspicious was found. Stephen appeared, on the surface, normal. He collected medieval swords and armor, and his apartment was cluttered with cardboard boxes. Without a warrant, however, police couldn't rummage through his belongings or open cabinets, and obtaining a warrant required solid evidence. Born on September 9, 1985, Stephen was 24 at the time of the incident. Raised in Lilburn near Atlanta, he was described as highly intelligent, with a passion for the Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. He collected memorabilia tied to these films. A quintessential early 2000s nerd, nothing too unusual. As a child, friends called him Mr. Clean for his obsessive tidiness. Like Lauren, he was orderly, attended church diligently, and took his studies and faith seriously. It was no surprise they became friends in college, or that they coincidentally ended up at Barrister's Hall. Lauren once told her family that Stephen wasn't a bad person, but was a bit odd, reserved, and socially awkward. The first time she greeted him, he visibly flinched. Those who knew Stephen echoed this, describing him as clumsy in conversation, struggling to connect, and reacting strangely when flustered, giggling nervously for no reason, or even mimicking cat sounds. A former roommate, Thad Money, who also attended Mercer with Lauren, called Stephen kind but peculiar. Thad found Stephen's interests unsettling, like his obsession with zombie films or fantasies about executing perfect assassinations. Thad revealed that Stephen practiced lock-picking, boasting he could open a lock in 30 seconds without noise or damage. Stephen once told Thad that if he ever wanted to eliminate someone, he'd use chloroform to knock them out before they could scream. This detail raised alarms among investigators, especially since no one in the apartment complex had heard screams or suspicious noises. On July 1st, 5 days after Lauren's death, police executed a search warrant on Stephen's apartment. He was also summoned to the station for questioning. Stepping into his home, investigators immediately sensed they were dealing with a deeply reclusive, disturbed individual. Stephen had never had a girlfriend, and over time, he appeared to have spiraled into obsession. Their first discovery was a stash of condoms, oddly paired with a set of keys that could unlock multiple apartments in the complex. When questioned, Stephen calmly explained that he was still a virgin, never having been intimate with anyone. For weeks, even months, he had been sneaking into other students' apartments, stealing keys and condoms to help them stay pure until marriage, just as he claimed to be. It sounded absurd. Stephen portrayed himself as pure, yet police found women's underwear in his apartment, stolen from female neighbors. But, as with many cases from that era, the true extent of Stephen's character emerged only when his computer was searched. Online, behind the anonymity of a screen, people often reveal their darkest selves. Hiding in his private digital world, Stephen's disturbing nature came into sharp focus. On April 28th, roughly 2 months before Lauren's death, he searched for nude photos of her. Unsuccessful, he spent minutes staring at her pictures on her personal Twitter account. You can imagine what he was doing during that time. From April to June, Stephen was online daily, spending hours watching adult films and searching for young women to date. He even visited a website for escorts, but always returned to Lauren's photos, the only woman he was close to in real life. His viewing habits centered on videos of women who were asleep, unconscious, or unable to resist. On a forum under the username Son of Liberty, he described himself as a cold, emotionless monster. He wrote about wanting to strangle someone, shoot them, or toss a victim into a dumpster like worthless trash. Among his favorite films was Grotesque, 2009, a brutally violent movie about a couple kidnapped and tortured in a basement in the most horrific ways imaginable. He also admired The Girl Next Door, a horror film based on the real-life case of Sylvia Likens, a girl tortured by her friend's adoptive mother, Gertrude, locked in a basement, and subjected to abuse by neighborhood boys. Given the content Stephen regularly consumed, much of it involving underage girls, it's hardly surprising that police uncovered child pornography on his computer. On May 1st, he searched for ways to escape prison. The next day, he looked up, how long does it take for an unconscious person to wake up? Stephen's life in his apartment was like a dark loop. He'd watch a violent film, then research methods to strangle someone, feeding his twisted fantasies. To release the pent-up emotions, he'd pull up a photo of Lauren on his computer screen and indulge in his obsessions. It became clear that Stephen was fixated on Lauren. Could he have been the elusive Macon stalker she sensed but never saw, always careful to conceal his identity? More critically, could he have harmed her? And if so, where was the rest of her body? A breakthrough came from a video found on Stephen's computer. Though he tried to delete it, investigators recovered it. The footage showed the interior of Lauren's apartment, captured by a small camera. Stephen had been secretly filming Lauren through her apartment window, using a tiny camera attached to a stick. This allowed him to slide the device through window slats for 1 or 2 minutes at a time, recording illicit daily snippets. The video was damning evidence, proving Stephen was a deeply dangerous individual who hid his true nature. It confirmed he was the stalker obsessively watching Lauren for months. Living right next door, he could easily tell when she was away, slip into her apartment, and even had a key to her place among his possessions. Through this camera, he also discovered Lauren had recently installed an anti-burglary device on her door. He researched its model to identify its weaknesses. On July 1st, Stephen was brought in for questioning. What stunned investigators was his eerie calm, a chilling composure reminiscent of notorious criminals in history. Over 2 grueling hours, as detectives bombarded him with evidence, threats, and pressure, Stephen remained unmoved, whether they leaned in close or stepped back. Everything in the interrogation room, the coffee cup, the smallest details shifted, but Stephen only turned his head, no signs of stress. He didn't touch his face, didn't fidget, nothing. It was impossible to read his mental state. His responses were limited to yes, no, or I don't know. He showed no reaction when questioned about attacking Lauren, stalking her, or searching for her nude photos. His brief answers maintained an unsettling emotional control. However, Stephen's body bore scratches resembling defensive wounds, but without Lauren's hands or nails for comparison, her body still missing, they couldn't be linked conclusively. Still, investigators had enough to charge Stephen with murder. As you'll recall, a critical piece of evidence was found in Lauren's apartment, a hacksaw belonging to Stephen. Police discovered its purchase receipt and packaging in his home, leading to his formal murder charge in late August 2011. Meanwhile, Lauren's family laid her to rest. They placed her upper torso, the only part recovered, in an urn, a final act of reverence giving them a grave to visit. Stephen, however, prepared his defense, insisting on his innocence. His parents staunchly supported him, unwavering in their belief in their son. Stephen's lawyers worked meticulously, highlighting a key issue, a conflict of interest. During law school, Stephen had clerked for Judge Ennis, the judge assigned to his case. Despite their efforts, this didn't sway the outcome. Now Stephen began to fear. Georgia still enforced the death penalty, and though Lauren's family opposed it, respecting her lifelong stance, the prospect of execution loomed. With overwhelming evidence mounting, Stephen's chances of escaping a severe sentence were dwindling. Realizing he had no way out, Stephen, despite his intelligence, knew further denials were futile against the irrefutable evidence. In April 2014, he accepted a plea deal. The justice system offered to charge Stephen solely for Lauren's murder, dropping charges related to his thefts from neighboring apartments and possession of child pornography. In return, he'd avoid a humiliating public trial and, crucially, not be listed as a sex offender in prison. A life sentence with parole eligibility after 30 years was the lightest outcome he could hope for. Stephen chose to confess everything. Stephen revealed that in the early hours of Sunday, June 26th, he was gripped by intense arousal after secretly filming Lauren through her window again. Around 4 a.m., hearing faint sounds from her apartment, he was certain she was asleep. He dressed in black, donned gloves and a mask, and slipped out, key in hand. His lock-picking skills allowed him to enter her apartment silently, leaving no trace. He went straight to Lauren's bedroom. She woke in a panic as he began strangling her. They struggled. In her desperation, Lauren tore off his mask, and in that moment, Stephen believed he had no choice. "I had to finish it," he said coldly. He strangled her for 15 minutes until she went limp. Then he dragged her body to the bathroom, placing it in the tub, as if hiding an object no one should see. Stephen left the scene, leaving Lauren in the cold silence. Later, regaining his composure, he watched The Hangover Part 2, as if winding down from a long day, ate and slept soundly. Not until the next night did he return, bringing a hacksaw to dismember her body. Though he confessed to the act, Stephen denied any sexual motive. He insisted he never violated Lauren. He admitted to disposing of her head and limbs in a dumpster near Mercer, sealed in plastic bags. He threw her torso into another dumpster during the commotion outside, though he'd initially planned to keep it longer. That's why he hid the hacksaw in Lauren's closet, panicking when the discovery came sooner than expected. Stephen claimed he was consumed by paranoia after her death, haunted by the thought that she might still be alive, and he could somehow find her. He admitted his crime, but struggled to explain his motive. Stephen wept for Lauren, expressing remorse and acknowledging he didn't deserve her family's forgiveness. After the plea deal, no trial was held. He was sentenced to 30 years, eligible for parole in 2041. However, on his lawyer's advice, Stephen appealed, claiming innocence due to a case flaw. If a trial occurred, prosecutors would need to prove he killed Lauren. They could confirm he dismembered her with the hacksaw, but couldn't definitively prove he killed her, as they'd need to show she was alive when he acted. Stephen demanded a new trial, arguing his lawyer had failed him. His attorney, Floyd Bufford, admitted his defense was inadequate, overwhelmed by the case details. Stephen had confessed to him about disposing of Lauren's fingers in a toilet and researching the consequences of necrophilia. Shocked, Bufford had urged Stephen to take the deal. The appeal was denied. Stephen remains in prison. In Georgia, he avoided the death penalty and, with good behavior, could seek parole in 2041. His parents continue to defend him, believing he confessed due to poor legal advice. An annual memorial march honors Lauren, and a softball tournament raises funds to support young students with dreams of college, just like her. At the time of the crime, David had planned a surprise proposal for Lauren, intending to ask her to move in with him 2 weeks later. Story 2. On June 30th, 2022, at the luxurious Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Tsim Sha Tsui, Hong Kong, a horrific murder occurred, shocking the local public. The victim was a promising young woman, Aqua Chow, 23 years old, famous for her role as a yoga instructor and model. The incident took place right before she was about to embark on a life-changing trip. However, the journey could never begin. The secrets in Aqua's personal relationships and suspicious signs at the scene opened up a complex investigation. Aqua Chow, 23 years old, with an active and energetic life at the luxury apartment Seaside Sonata, is always the center of attention. Famous for her passion for yoga and a healthy lifestyle, she is often admired by her friends and considered a modern role model. But beneath that radiant exterior lies a tumultuous love story with Alex Lowe, 28, a man with unpredictable wounds and insecurities. When Aqua and Alex started their relationship in mid-2021, everything seemed perfect. Alex, a former wushu athlete, had a strong charisma and a confident demeanor. Although his career was interrupted by an injury, Alex still retained the charm that many people were attracted to. Aqua, with her optimistic personality, became Alex's spiritual support during difficult days. Their relationship progressed quickly, and after only a few months, the two decided to move in together in Aqua's apartment. In the early days, their life was full of joy and sharing. The two often cooked together, attended yoga classes, or simply sat together and talked about their dreams and future plans. Aqua believed she had found the perfect companion, someone who could share all the joys and hardships of life. However, as time passed, the deep problems in Alex's personality began to emerge. His unsuccessful martial arts career left a huge void in Alex. Not only did he struggle financially, but he also had insecurities about his status and self-worth. This made him sensitive and vulnerable, especially in his relationship with Aqua, a young, independent, and successful woman. At first, Alex only showed excessive concern. He often called or texted Aqua when she was out, asking what she was doing and who she was with. Aqua, with her easygoing nature, didn't pay much attention at first. But when Alex started to get annoyed whenever she met friends or participated in activities without him, Aqua realized that Alex's concern was gradually turning into control. As the days passed, Alex's jealousy became more obvious. Innocent questions turned into lengthy interrogations, and whenever Aqua tried to explain, Alex showed disbelief. What started as small arguments quickly escalated into big fights. Alex often blamed Aqua for not spending enough time with him, and Aqua felt suffocated when her every decision seemed to require Alex's approval. Living together, from once happy days, now became a series of stressful days. Aqua began to avoid Alex whenever possible, spending time at work or yoga classes to escape the heavy atmosphere at home. Alex, noticing Aqua's distance, became even more insecure. He tried every way to control her, from tracking her schedule to checking her phone whenever she wasn't looking. 6 months of living together, instead of bringing them closer together, made their relationship more fragile than ever. Aqua began to seriously consider ending the relationship, but she also felt regret for having invested so much in Alex. She hoped that, with time and support, Alex could change and return to the man she once loved. However, Aqua's efforts were fruitless. Alex seemed to sink deeper and deeper into a spiral of insecurity and jealousy, followed by increasingly extreme controlling behaviors. Aqua Chow, with her radiant appearance and independent spirit, has always been the center of admiration of her friends and the community. But inside, she is facing a damaging relationship with Alex Lowe. The months of living together have eroded her feelings and trust in the man who used to be her support. Things got worse when Alex began to use his control to threaten and dominate her, going beyond the limits of love. Once, during an argument, Alex threatened to release Aqua's private photos to force her to comply with his demands. Terrified by this action, Aqua decided to report the incident to the police. She hoped that legal intervention would help her protect herself and end the days of being controlled by Alex. However, after a while, Alex kept begging for forgiveness, promising to change and never repeat the threatening act. Aqua, with her soft-hearted nature, finally withdrew the application and got back together with him. This was a decision that she did not expect would lead to tragedy later. By the end of June 2022, after much thought, Aqua realized that this relationship could no longer be saved. She decided to completely end it with Alex to prepare for a new beginning. She received an invitation to attend a 3-month yoga course in the US, an opportunity she eagerly accepted. For Aqua, this was not only an opportunity to develop her career but also an escape from the toxic relationship with Alex. But for Alex, this was like a declaration of the end that he could not accept. After hearing the news that Aqua was leaving, Alex seemed to fall into a state of agitation. The instability in his personality became more obvious than ever. He could not accept that Aqua had left him to pursue her own path, and in Alex's twisted mind that meant betrayal. He began to have dark thoughts, planning an action that he thought would keep Aqua by his side forever. On June 28, 2022, Alex rented a room at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, where he had arranged to meet Aqua for the last time. This action was not simply an impromptu one. When checking the security camera, the police later discovered that Alex was carrying a 27 centimeters long knife, carefully hidden in his bag. This detail showed that his actions were prepared in advance, not a spontaneous action. He chose the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, a luxurious place, as if to cover up the impending brutality with a normal appearance. On June 29, 2022, a sultry and peaceful afternoon like any other, Aqua Chow left her luxury apartment at Seaside Sonata. At 4:34 p.m., the building's security camera recorded her walking out with Alex Lowe. Aqua was wearing an elegant dress, her hair loose, and Alex was wearing a shirt, walking beside her with a calm but cold expression. A few minutes earlier, Aqua's father had just left, unaware that the meeting between his daughter and Alex would lead to a terrible tragedy. Alex, whose mind was already disturbed by jealousy and the fear of loss, drove Aqua to the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. This was not the first time Alex and Aqua had been to this hotel, but this time the atmosphere in the car was completely different. There was no conversation, no smile, only silence. Alex, his mind filled with dark thoughts, seemed to have his plan in place. Aqua, sitting next to him, probably felt the tension in the air but did not realize that danger was approaching. When they arrived at the Ritz-Carlton, Alex led Aqua to the room he had booked in advance. The room was on a high floor, with a beautiful view of the city center. As soon as the door closed, Alex began asking questions, initially in a calm tone but increasingly tense. He asked why Aqua wanted to leave him, why she chose to go to America instead of staying to work on their relationship. Aqua, with her usual calmness, explained that she needed a fresh start and that their relationship had become toxic. She tried to convince Alex that breaking up was the best thing for both of them. But Aqua's words only added fuel to the fire burning inside Alex. He couldn't accept Aqua leaving him and couldn't bear the thought of her starting a new life without him. The argument escalated quickly, with Alex loudly accusing Aqua of betraying him and abandoning him when he needed her the most. Aqua tried to leave the room to end the argument, but Alex rushed to block her way, his eyes blazing with anger. In a fit of uncontrollable rage, Alex pulled out the 27 centimeters knife he had hidden in his pocket. The first stabs were aimed straight at Aqua's body, causing her to collapse instantly. But Alex did not stop. Jealousy and anger had completely taken over him. The stabs continued to hit Aqua's chest, abdomen, and neck. Among them, 2 fatal stabs, a 20 centimeters long cut through her left breast and a deep cut into her throat, took her life in an instant. The normally quiet room was now filled with the sound of the attack and the smell of blood. Aqua, the young, vibrant girl, now lay motionless on the floor, her body covered in blood. Alex standing numbly over her body, still clutching the knife. Blood from the blade dripped onto the carpet, creating a long red streak. He stared at Aqua, as if he could not believe that he had just done this terrible thing. But the panic only lasted for a moment, quickly giving way to a cold, calculating state. Alex wiped the knife clean with the towel in the room and put it aside. Then he dragged Aqua's body into the bathroom, gently placing her in the bathtub. He wrapped a large towel around her, covering the bloody wounds, as if trying to create a peaceful appearance for her. But the bloody scene and scratches all over the room could not hide the horrifying crime. Instead of leaving the scene immediately, Alex decided to extend his stay. He called the front desk, asking for an extension for another night, in a calm tone and without showing any signs of anxiety. Then Alex sat down on the chair by the window, holding a glass of water in his hand, but not drinking, his eyes absent-mindedly looking out at the city view. He turned on the TV but did not pay much attention to what was being broadcast. In Alex's mind, he was probably calculating his next move. All night long, Alex stayed in the bloody room, not leaving once. He ordered food to his room, chatted with the hotel staff normally, and showed no signs of abnormality. But no matter how hard he tried to cover it up, he couldn't help but notice that the traces he left behind had become irrefutable evidence. His fingerprints on the knife, on the towel wrapped around Aqua's body, and on the door all became pieces of the puzzle that helped the police uncover the whole truth about this barbaric crime. When dawn broke, Alex was still sitting quietly in that room, as if waiting for something to happen. He didn't leave, nor did he try to erase the traces. Perhaps in his disturbed mind, Alex knew that everything was about to end, and there was no way for him to escape the ending he had created. On the morning of June 30th, 2022, Aqua Chow's family began to worry when she had not contacted them for the past day. According to the plan, Aqua was supposed to be at the airport to fly to the US the night before, but when they contacted the airline, they were informed that she had not checked in for the flight. Things got worse when a close friend of Aqua's went to check on her apartment and found her luggage still intact, with no sign of her having prepared for the trip. This abnormality prompted Aqua's family to immediately call the police to report her missing. The Hong Kong police force began investigating that morning. When they accessed the security camera of the Seaside Sonata apartment complex, they discovered images of Aqua leaving the house at 4:34 p.m. on June 29th with Alex Lowe. This was the last time Aqua was seen alive. Investigators quickly focused on Alex, her ex-boyfriend, and noticed that he did not return to his apartment after that time. This raised suspicions that Alex was involved in Aqua's disappearance. While the police were expanding their investigation, in the early afternoon of June 30th, Alex Lowe suddenly appeared at the Wong Tai Sin police station with a lawyer. His face looked tense but showed no signs of confusion or remorse. To the surprise of the investigators, Alex frankly confessed that he had attacked Aqua Chow the previous afternoon in a room at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. He gave specific directions to the location of the body and provided information about what had happened, although he did not go into detail. An investigation team was immediately dispatched to the Ritz-Carlton Hotel to check the information. When they entered the room that Alex had rented, the police were shocked by the scene. Aqua's body was lying in a large bathtub, soaked in water that had turned crimson with blood from the wounds on her body. She was wrapped in a large towel, as if Alex had intentionally created a temporary cover-up. Beside the body, a 27 centimeters long knife was found submerged at the bottom of the tub, the blade still showing visible bloodstains. The knife was quickly identified as the murder weapon that Alex used to kill Aqua. Investigators analyzed the scene and found that there were no signs of a violent struggle. The objects in the room were still in their original positions, not disturbed or broken. This detail is consistent with Alex's testimony that he attacked Aqua by surprise when she did not have time to fight back. Blood stains on the carpet, walls, and wooden floor leading to the bathroom showed that Aqua was dragged into the tub after being attacked. This confirmed that Alex had planned his actions coldly and deliberately. In addition to the obvious traces in the room, the police also found Aqua's personal items, including a handbag and phone, left on the table near the door. This showed that Aqua had no intention of staying at the hotel for long, but perhaps just wanted to settle her relationship with Alex once and for all before leaving Hong Kong. However, she could not have imagined that this encounter would lead to her tragic death. While the forensic officers continued to collect evidence from the scene, Alex was questioned at the police station. He told the story in a calm tone, but that calmness only made the investigators feel more horrified. Alex described that he could not bear the thought of Aqua wanting to leave him and start a new life. Jealousy and anger made him completely lose control, leading to the brutal act. However, the fact that he brought a long knife to the hotel and carried out the act with careful preparation clearly showed that this was not a spontaneous act. Alex's testimony, along with the undeniable evidence at the scene, painted a clear picture of the crime he committed. After killing Aqua, Alex did not leave the hotel immediately but stayed in the room overnight, extending his stay and even ordering food to his room, trying to maintain an appearance of normalcy. It was only the next morning, when he felt the pressure from the police investigation, that he decided to come forward. Aqua Chow's death quickly spread, shocking Hong Kong public opinion and the international community. A promising young woman with a bright future ahead of her was taken away because of her ex-lover's selfishness and jealousy. The horrific scene at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel became living evidence of the crime, making anyone who heard about the case shudder. As Aqua's body was taken out of the hotel in a black bag, staff and guests at the Ritz-Carlton watched in haunting silence. The room was sealed off, becoming the main investigation scene in this brutal murder. Police continue to track down every little detail to ensure that every hidden corner of the case will be brought to light. But even if justice is served, the pain and loss that Aqua's family has suffered will never be able to ease. In December 2022, the Alex Lowe murder case of Aqua Chow was officially brought to trial in the Hong Kong District Court. The trial received special attention from the public because of the brutal nature of the case and the pain it left on the victim's family. The courtroom was packed with people, including Aqua's family, friends, and those interested in the case. The media was also present in large numbers to cover one of the most sensational cases of the year. At the beginning of the trial, the prosecutor presented clear evidence that Alex Lowe had planned the murder in advance. They pointed out that Alex had booked a room at the Ritz-Carlton the day before the crime and had brought with him a 27-centimeter knife, which was identified as the murder weapon used to kill Aqua. This was an undeniable sign that Alex's actions were not a sudden outburst of anger, but a carefully prepared plan. The prosecutor also brought up Alex's confession after he appeared at the Wong Tai Sin police station. He admitted to attacking Aqua and provided details that matched the crime scene perfectly. In addition, the forensic report confirmed that Aqua had been stabbed more than 30 times, including 2 fatal stabs, one to the left chest that pierced her heart and one to her throat that killed her instantly. The injuries were determined to be the result of intentional violence, completely ruling out the possibility that this was an act of insanity. Alex's defense attorney attempted to argue that their client acted in a state of emotional agitation, without any premeditated intention to kill Aqua. They cited the tensions in their relationship and the feeling of betrayal when Aqua decided to leave him. However, the jury rejected this argument. The court emphasized that the evidence showed that Alex had prepared in advance, from bringing the knife to renting the room, proving his clear intention. On December 15, 2022, the court found Alex Lowe guilty of premeditated murder and sentenced him to life in prison. The verdict was met with sympathy from Aqua's family and the public. Although justice had been served, the pain of loss that Aqua's family had to endure will never be forgotten. The case was closed, leaving behind a profound reminder of the tragic consequences of jealousy and control in love. Story 3. Now, we dive into a story brimming with drama that's taken Disney's Hulu platform by storm. The gripping series Good American Family has left audiences on edge from the moment it premiered, sparking fierce debates across the globe. The director masterfully weaves the narrative through 2 starkly contrasting perspectives, pulling viewers into a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. On one side, there's seething outrage toward an ungrateful adopted daughter who seems to betray her family. On the other, there's a pang of pity upon discovering that her adoptive parents might be wolves in sheep's clothing, despicable figures hiding behind a facade of virtue. The audience's emotions are stretched to their limits, from grinding their teeth in fury to shedding tears of empathy. Love and loathing intertwine, creating an intensely emotional journey. If the series' relentless drama has already left you reeling, the true story behind it is even stranger and more chilling. So, who is the real deceiver? Is it Natalia Grace, the demon disguised as an angel? Or is it the so-called Good American Family, who orchestrated the abandonment of an innocent orphan? And what about the seemingly saintly pastor couple? Could they be concealing a sinister secret? Join me as we unravel this tangled, twist-filled case, a real-life saga dubbed the true version of the film Orphan, to dig deeper into this haunting story. It all began in 2010 in Indiana, USA. Christine and Michael Barnett, married for 20 years, had 3 bright, well-mannered sons. Yet, deep in their hearts, they longed for a daughter to complete their family. After multiple failed attempts to conceive, they turned to adoption to fulfill their dream. The journey to adopt wasn't easy. They contacted numerous orphanages and adoption agencies, but either no child felt like the right fit, or the waitlist stretched 5 to 6 years. Frustrated, they shifted their focus to international adoption. Through a private adoption agency, after paying a substantial intermediary fee, they were introduced to a 4-year-old girl from Haiti. Everything was set, paperwork finalized, anticipation building, only to receive a devastating last-minute call. The entire process had been canceled, and the child would not be coming to the U.S. as planned. The blow crushed the Barnetts, leaving them in despair. It felt as though fate was mocking them, snatching away their chance to parent a daughter. Christine broke down, sobbing. "This must be our fate. Maybe we'll never have a little girl." But less than 6 months later, a glimmer of hope emerged. Another private adoption agency reached out with news of an 8-year-old Ukrainian girl named Natalia Grace. Recently rejected by her previous adoptive family, she was already in the U.S. and at risk of entering the state's foster care system, a place where children often bounce between temporary homes. Christine, a former social worker for children, was horrified. She knew all too well the grim reality of foster care. Kids shuffled from one home to another, often under the indifferent care of families, who took them in solely for government subsidies, treating them like pets, fed just enough to survive. The thought of Natalia enduring such a fate was unbearable. Christine immediately expressed interest in adopting Natalia, but needed time to discuss it with their sons. The agency, however, pressed urgently. "You have 24 hours to decide, or the child will be transferred to social services." Under the ticking clock, the Barnetts felt Natalia was a gift from above, a rare opportunity they couldn't let slip away. They agreed to adopt her over the phone. 2 days later, they flew to Florida to meet Natalia. The moment they laid eyes on her, it was as if they'd struck gold. Natalia, an 8-year-old with sparkling intelligence, a honey-sweet voice, and an adorable charm, called them Mom and Dad within 10 minutes, melting Christine and Michael's hearts. She quickly bonded with them, filling the air with laughter. But when they asked why such a bright, delightful child hadn't been adopted, the agency worker hesitated before revealing the truth. Natalia was born with dwarfism, a condition that stunted her growth and caused skeletal issues. Though she appeared like any other child while seated, her legs were so weak she could barely walk and relied on a wheelchair for mobility. Her past was equally tragic. Born in Ukraine, she was abandoned by her biological parents just 2 days after birth. The orphanage she grew up in was so underfunded that it couldn't afford early corrective surgery, leaving her with lifelong complications. Her physical challenges made her undesirable to prospective adoptive families. Natalia lived in the orphanage until age 6 when a kind American couple brought her to the U.S. After 2 years, with adoption nearly finalized, they abruptly backed out. Without offering a clear reason, they dropped her off at the agency's office, coldly stating, "We don't want her anymore. Find her another family." Hearing this, Christine and Michael were heartbroken for Natalia and furious at the couple's callousness. "She's a child, not a stray animal. How could anyone be so heartless?" They fumed. Holding Natalia close, they vowed to give her a loving, stable home to heal her wounds. During the adoption process, the agency cautioned them. Caring for a disabled child like Natalia would demand far more time, effort, and money than raising a typical child. But the Barnetts smiled confidently. They had faced greater challenges before. Their eldest son, diagnosed with severe autism and once deemed incapable of independence, had thrived under their devoted care. By age 12, he was self-studying college-level material and had become a renowned physics prodigy in their community. Christine had even penned a best-selling memoir, The Spark, an inspiring tale urging parents to never give up on their children and to transform their lives through love. Armed with this experience, the Barnetts were certain they could care for Natalia. Despite her physical limitations, she was remarkably sharp and spirited. Given time and opportunity, they believed she could shine as brightly as her brother. perhaps even become a prodigy herself. With modern medical advancements, they hoped a skilled doctor might one day help her walk, attend school, and live a full life, maybe even marry and have children. Convinced by the couple's resolve, financial stability, and expertise with special needs children, the agency approved the adoption. Natalia, once abandoned by the world, had finally found a proper home, a new beginning that seemed beyond reach. From that moment, Natalia's life turned a new page. Christine and Michael showered her with love, buying her clothes, toys, and a brand new backpack. They decorated a charming bedroom with pink walls and princess-themed furniture, the dream of any little girl. Even her wheelchair sparkled with rhinestone embellishments like a custom accessory for a tiny princess. Her 3 new brothers warmly welcomed their little sister, quickly bonding through playful chatter and laughter. The family buzzed with warmth and joy. To celebrate their new member, they embarked on a week-long trip to Disneyland. But during that trip, the Barnetts began to notice something unsettling. One day, the family stopped at a beach near their hotel. The boys leapt out of the car, racing toward the waves with gleeful shouts. Natalia, seated in her wheelchair, watched her brothers with eager eyes, pleading with her parents to carry her to the sand to join them. Caught up with unloading food and drinks, Christine and Michael gently asked, "Can you wait a few minutes, sweetie? We'll carry you out as soon as we're done." To their surprise, those words sparked an outburst. Natalia wailed and screamed, insisting she be taken to the beach immediately. Though startled, the Barnetts chalked it up to a child's occasional tantrum and held firm. "We'll take you once you calm down." But then, in a shocking twist, Natalia sprang from her wheelchair and sprinted toward the beach, her movements swift and steady, like any healthy child. Christine and Michael stood frozen, unable to believe their eyes. Wasn't she unable to walk? How is she running like this? Natalia moved with such agility she could likely keep up with her brothers. Was this a miracle? Yet, after the incident, Natalia returned to her wheelchair, struggling to move as before, as if the sprint had been a collective hallucination. To clarify, the Barnetts took her to Indiana University Hospital. Doctors confirmed that, despite her dwarfism causing leg deformities, her muscles and nerves were fully functional, capable of supporting her weight. In short, Natalia could walk. A child psychologist offered a striking theory. Children who endure prolonged abuse sometimes shut down normal bodily functions as a defense mechanism. Natalia's inconsistent ability to walk could stem from a mix of psychological and physical trauma. The doctor urged the Barnetts to give her time and patience to heal her emotional scars. Nodding in agreement, Christine and Michael believed that what Natalia needed most wasn't medicine, but love and time. They dismissed her occasional outbursts and tears as understandable reactions to her painful past. But what unfolded next would shatter their assumptions, forcing them to question everything about their adopted daughter. From the moment Natalia arrived at the Barnett home, Christine sensed something peculiar. First, it was small things. Natalia adamantly refused to let her adoptive mother help with bathing or scrubbing her back, insisting on doing everything herself despite her short limbs, caused by dwarfism, making it difficult to reach parts of her body. Christine chalked it up to Natalia becoming aware of her gender and feeling shy, so she didn't press the issue. She'd prepare the bath water and leave. But one day when Christine returned to collect dirty laundry, she glimpsed a sight that stopped her cold. The child, supposedly only 8 years old, had thick pubic and underarm hair. Before Christine could process it, Natalia quickly covered herself with a towel, sobbing hysterically and refusing to let anyone near. To avoid upsetting her further, Christine let it go, but a seed of doubt took root. The oddities didn't stop there. While cleaning Natalia's room, Christine repeatedly found blood-stained clothes and underwear, yet Natalia had no visible injuries. A chilling suspicion prompted Christine to quietly track when these items appeared. The results sent shivers down her spine. The bloodstains showed up monthly, like clockwork, mirroring the signs of menstruation. Thick body hair, menstruation, these traits were impossible for an 8-year-old. It wasn't just physical signs. Natalia's mindset was far removed from her peers. She had no interest in dolls or playing house like other children her age. preferring instead to hang out with neighborhood girls a decade older. She devoured teen fashion magazines and music videos, scoffing at cartoons meant for kids. According to the adoption agency's records, Natalia had only been in the U.S. for 2 years, yet her English was flawless, like a native speaker's. Her vocabulary was rich, even peppered with polite, formal phrases rarely used by children. At first, Christine and Michael attributed this to a natural gift for language, but their doubts grew stronger. Then came a pivotal moment. While at a park, Christine and Natalia met a Ukrainian immigrant family. Learning Natalia was from Ukraine, they eagerly struck up a conversation in their native tongue, but Natalia stared blankly, seemingly unable to understand a word. When they switched to Russian, she remained clueless, not uttering a single syllable. This was baffling. How could a girl from Ukraine, in the U.S. for just 2 years, forget her native language so completely? These mounting inconsistencies left even the optimistic Barnetts questioning everything. The situation escalated when a close friend invited Christine to watch the 2009 horror film, Orphan, released just a year before they adopted Natalia. The movie tells the story of a psychopathic killer with a rare disorder that makes her appear as a young girl despite being in her 30s. She poses as an orphan, exploiting her innocent facade to be adopted, only to murder the kind families who take her in. Watching it, Christine felt a chill, as if the film were narrating her own family's story, though her husband and friends reassured her it was just fiction, not to be confused with reality. Christine's suspicions spiraled beyond control. She promptly contacted the adoption agency, demanding to see Natalia's birth certificate. The document listed only 3 digits, 943. The agency explained that in Ukraine, Natalia was recorded as 6 years old when first adopted, so they assigned her a birth date of September 4, 2003, for her U.S. visa. But what if it wasn't 2003? What if it was 1993? Or worse, 1983? Could the plot of Orphan be unfolding in real life? What unnerved Christine further was the agency's revelation. In Ukraine, for abandoned or orphan children without birth certificates, age is often estimated based on height. A child with documentation as an 8-year-old sets the standard. Those of similar height are deemed 8, shorter ones 7, and so on. But Natalia's dwarfism stunted her growth, rendering this method useless. Her true age could be far older than her records suggested. Determined to uncover the truth, the Barnetts took Natalia back to Indiana Medical Center for a bone age test, the most reliable method at the time to estimate a child's age. However, her dwarfism complicated matters. Her bones, underdeveloped and with abnormal density, yielded vague results. Natalia could be anywhere from 11 to 24 years old. Let me clarify something for you here. In medicine, dwarfism is divided into 2 main types, disproportionate and proportionate. Disproportionate dwarfism means the head and torso are near normal, but limbs are unusually short, like Tyrion Lannister in Game of Thrones. Proportionate dwarfism, however, results in a body that's a miniature version of an adult's, like the tiny girl in American Horror Story, Freak Show. Those with this type often have childlike appearances and voices, even as adults. Interestingly, Imogen Faith, the English actress who plays Natalia in Hulu's Good American Family, has proportionate dwarfism. At 28, she still looks like a child. Back to the Barnett story. If Natalia had proportionate dwarfism, it was entirely possible she was an adult in a child's body. Of course, she could also simply be a child with unusually mature psychology. Medically, her true age remained an unanswered question. For Christine and Michael, however, the issue boiled down to one word: chilling. Initially, they tried to accept the situation, reasoning, we chose to adopt her, so we'll see it through. They began buying Natalia teenage clothes and hired a tutor to prepare her for middle school after the summer. But after the bone age test, Natalia changed drastically. She became withdrawn, no longer engaging with her adoptive parents or brothers. Worse, she grew increasingly volatile. The slightest displeasure triggered tantrums. She'd smash objects, scream at anyone trying to help, spit on people, or urinate in the car. She stopped hiding her menstruation, even smearing blood on the walls. But that was just the beginning. Christine discovered Natalia pouring bleach into their coffee. She found her standing silently in their bedroom at night, holding a kitchen knife. Natalia even tried to push her brother down the stairs. Her behavior mirrored the sinister killer from Orphan. In one terrifying incident, Natalia shoved Christine into an electric animal fence. Fortunately, it wasn't powered, or the consequences could have been unthinkable. The final straw came when Christine, against all odds, tracked down the family that had previously adopted Natalia. This information was supposed to be confidential, but somehow she managed. What they revealed was horrifying. The previous family explained they returned Natalia because she deliberately pushed their son down the stairs, causing a concussion and a broken arm. The Barnetts were stunned. Fear crept in, growing like a dark shadow over their lives. With no other options, they admitted Natalia to a psychiatric hospital, hoping experts could help. There, she was diagnosed with schizophrenia, antisocial personality disorder, and manic bipolar disorder. One doctor emphasized that these conditions typically emerge in adolescence or adulthood, almost never in young children. During a therapy session, Natalia admitted to the psychiatrist that she was much older than everyone thought. When pressed for her exact age, or why she pretended to be a child, she clammed up, refusing to answer. The session was recorded. Combined with the bone age test results, the Barnetts filed a petition with the court to amend Natalia's birth certificate. Remember the birth certificate listing September 4, 2003? The Barnetts believed it should be September 4, 1989. By early 2012, Natalia went from being a child under 10 to a 22-year-old woman. As wild as it sounds, the court, after deliberation, approved the change, officially recognizing Natalia as an adult born on September 4, 1989. At this time, the Barnetts' eldest son, a genius with autism, was accepted into the prestigious University of Waterloo in Canada. To support his education and care, the family decided to relocate to Ontario. Natalia, now their former adopted daughter, was not included. Instead, they secured her a small apartment, paid a year's rent in advance, enrolled her in disability benefits, and provided food vouchers. Believing they'd fulfilled their responsibilities, Christine and Michael left with peace of mind. According to Christine, they initially stayed in touch, with Natalia frequently calling to remind her to see her psychiatrist and take her medication. But soon, Natalia cut off all contact. Concerned, Christine called the landlord, only to learn Natalia had moved out early, despite the prepaid lease, claiming she'd found a new family and even redirected her social benefits to a new address. A vague fear gripped Christine. Was Natalia pretending to be a child again to deceive another family? By then, reaching Natalia was impossible, and the landlord didn't know her new address. To complicate matters, the Barnetts' marriage began to unravel, leading to a divorce. Consumed by personal turmoil, Christine set Natalia's situation aside. Little did she know the next contact wouldn't be a check-in call, but a court summons. It turns out, during her disappearance, Natalia had indeed found a new adoptive family. This time, a pastor from Indiana opened his arms to her. Years earlier, during a missionary event, he met Natalia and was moved by her tragic life story. Deeming the Barnetts' abandonment of her inhumane, he resolved to adopt her. But there was a hitch. Legally, Natalia was now 29 years old, too old to be adopted. So, the pastor's family petitioned the court to revert her birth date to September 4, 2003, transforming her back into a 16-year-old girl. Not only did they seek to change her age, but they also countersued the Barnetts, accusing them of unlawfully abandoning their adopted child and abusing a disabled person. The sensational headline, "Perfect Couple Abandons 8-Year-Old Girl to Fend for Herself," exploded across U.S. and Canadian media. Social media erupted, with the public ruthlessly condemning the Barnetts. Their reputation plummeted overnight. Unable to withstand the pressure, the couple reunited to clear their names. They appeared on television, pleading their case. "We opened our hearts to adopt her, only to nearly lose our lives because of her." The public anticipated a fiery legal showdown, with doctors who tested Natalia expected to testify. But on the day the story broke, the doctor who had twice conducted bone age tests, insisting Natalia was a child, suddenly died of a heart attack. Police ruled the death unsuspicious, but its timing cast an eerie shadow over the case. Amid the escalating feud, with public opinion in turmoil, the pastor's family presented irrefutable evidence. Natalia had matured over the 5 years she lived with them. They released recent photos of her alongside older ones. Though her dwarfism kept her small, her face had visibly aged from a child's to a teenager's. This aligned with the pastor's claim. Natalia had grown from 9 to 16, not from 22 to 29, as the Barnetts insisted. Compared to the ambiguous bone age tests, these photos were far more convincing, swaying online sentiment toward Natalia and the pastor's family. At that moment, the Barnetts' internal drama reignited. After their divorce, Michael swiftly returned to the U.S., remarried, and had a new child in record time, fueling speculation of infidelity before the split. Furious, Christine remained in Canada and began blocking their 3 sons from visiting their father, sparking a bitter custody battle. A friend goaded Michael into exploiting the Natalia case, proving Christine abused her could secure him custody. Naively, he took the bait. He flooded the media with accusations, mercilessly exposing his ex-wife. He claimed Christine repeatedly beat Natalia, coerced her into admitting she was an adult posing as a child, and that the bloodstains on her clothes, previously attributed to menstruation, were actually from physical abuse. Tensions soared when the youngest son, long at odds with his mother, released a damning recording. In it, he admitted to following Christine's orders to urinate in Natalia's room, creating a foul stench to frame her as unhygienic and uncontrollable. But Michael's plan backfired spectacularly. In betraying his ex-wife, he dug his own grave. The evidence he used to accuse Christine of abuse occurred while they were still married, meaning he was either complicit or negligent for not reporting it. With what can only be described as astonishing emotional naivety, Michael metaphorically smashed his own foot with the biggest rock he could find. Consequently, both he and Christine faced police charges for child neglect and abandonment. Yet, Michael's sheer lack of foresight unexpectedly saved him at his 2022 trial. The jury deemed him lacking in judgment, easily manipulated, and prone to ill-timed grandstanding. In blunt terms, he was labeled a bona fide messenger of misinformation, a master at self-sabotage. Shortly after Michael's acquittal, prosecutors quietly dropped all charges against Christine, leaving drama-hungry netizens disappointed. The reasoning was twofold. The evidence against both parents was too similar to convict one without the other, and crucially, Natalia herself began to raise suspicions. Pursuing the case further risked a humiliating defeat for the prosecution. Natalia's credibility took a hit during her 2019 appearance on the Drive Phil talk show, a chance to set the record straight that instead backfired. When asked, "How old are you?" she replied, "I'm 16, born September 4th, 2003. But when Dr. Phil pressed, "So, you're not a 33-year-old con artist posing as a child?" Natalia dodged, her eyes wavering, offering no clear answer. Questions about her Ukrainian childhood, her inability to speak her native language, or what happened with her first adoptive family were met with vague deflections. "I don't know where that was, just that there were lots of kids." When accused of deceiving the Barnetts and terrorizing them, she simply said, "That's not true." Dr. Phil, with his seasoned insight, concluded that Natalia couldn't be 33, as the documents suggested, but likely didn't know her own age. It was a diplomatic way of saying her stated age was dubious at best. In early 2021, Indiana police sent investigators to Ukraine to uncover Natalia's true identity. They located a Latvian woman named Anna, confirmed by a DNA as Natalia's biological mother. But the trail grew murkier. Anna suffered from severe mental illness, unable to recall giving birth, let alone Natalia's birth date. Records showed Anna was born in 1979. If the Barnetts were correct that Natalia was born in 1989, Anna would have given birth at 10, a near impossible scenario. Yet Anna insisted she was born at 6:25 a.m. on September 4th, 2003, at Maternity Hospital No. 1. "She's my daughter." This claim, however, wasn't enough to confirm Natalia's age. Police sought records from her orphanage and international adoption agencies. But the Russia-Ukraine war erupted, destroying or rendering many documents inaccessible. The investigation stalled. Ultimately, the Indiana court ruled based on available evidence. Natalia's birth year was restored to 2003, and the pastor's family was appointed her legal guardians. You might think this stormy saga finally reached a peaceful resolution, but the drama was far from over. In 2023, Investigation Discovery released a documentary titled The Curious Case of Natalia Grace, its name evoking The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, a film about a child born with an old man's appearance. As the documentary neared its premiere, a new bombshell dropped. Natalia and the pastor's family had turned on each other, with Natalia staging a dramatic escape from Indiana to New York. Natalia accused the pastor and his wife of physically and emotionally controlling her. They allegedly siphoned off nearly $200,000 in disability benefits, interview fees, and donations meant for her medical care. Exploiting her case's fame, the couple crafted a saintly image to attract followers and funds for their private church. Under the guise of charity, they adopted more disabled children, their motives far less noble than they appeared. Natalia estimated the couple pocketed enough to buy and a luxury RV. Yet, when she needed urgent spinal surgery, they pleaded poverty, delaying payment with excuses. Unable to endure further, Natalia sought help from a couple with dwarfism she'd befriended, begging them to rescue her from that devil's den. The pastor's family, however, told a different story. They claimed they'd wholeheartedly adopted Natalia, fighting tirelessly to restore her age and raising her as their own for a decade. The meager government benefits couldn't cover their efforts. They alleged Natalia turned on them after falling for an Englishman online, demanding to fly to Europe to meet him. When they objected, she rebelled and cut ties. Natalia didn't deny the online romance, but insisted it was true love. She claimed the pastor's family opposed it to force her into marrying within their church, keeping her in the fold. They allegedly withheld her identification documents, restricting her freedom, prompting her desperate escape. So who's truly at fault? Is Natalia an ungrateful betrayer? Or is the pastor's family exploiting her as a cash cow? Both sides clashed fiercely, neither backing down. Even the couple with dwarfism who helped Natalia escape got dragged into the fray, with the pastor accusing them of ulterior motives, claiming they encouraged her flight for financial gain. The documentary, The Curious Case of Natalia Grace, captured every heated exchange and explosive revelation, prompting some to quip that even the Kardashians' drama pales in comparison. At the heart of the scandal, Natalia displayed two starkly different faces. With the couple who sheltered her, she played the pitiful victim to secure a free place to stay. Yet, she didn't fully sever ties with the pastor's family, even allowing them to collect her monthly benefits. As tensions rose, the couple with dwarfism grew suspicious. Were Natalia and the pastor's family in cahoots, using them as pawns in a larger scheme? Natalia's reluctance to cut off the pastor's family hinted at a bombshell secret they held over her. According to an interview in the documentary, Natalia's online boyfriend received a threatening call, warning that if he redirected her benefits to himself or the couple, a devastating secret about Natalia would be exposed, ruining her. Though the secret's details remain unclear, many speculate it ties to her true age, a vulnerability that kept her tethered to the pastor's family, despite their falling out. Why does her age remain such a critical Achilles heel? Could this truly be a real-life version of Orphan? The documentary ended with Natalia and the pastor's family reaching a nominal settlement, but soon after its airing, the pastor's wife told the press they'd completely cut ties with Natalia, stating, "She goes her way. We live our lives. We owe each other nothing." It was a stark contrast to years earlier, when the couple tearfully embraced Natalia in court, vowing to love her like their own forever, while she sobbed, claiming she'd finally found a true home after a lifetime of pain. This turn of events sparked relentless questions. Why does everyone close to Natalia eventually turn their back on her? Is she cursed with bad luck, surrounded by villains? Or does she carry a jinx that drives people away? Or is there a deeper mystery forcing others to abandon her? The documentary closed on a hopeful note. Natalia met her online boyfriend and began a new life with him, yet the enigma of her origins and age remains an unsolved riddle. Setting aside the gripping twists, Today's story highlights a profound issue: the mismatched expectations between adoptive families and their children. Adoptive parents often think, "I provide food and shelter, you must be obedient and trouble-free in return." Conversely, adopted children expect, "If you choose me, you must accept all of me, loving me like your own and healing my past wounds." With such opposing mindsets, harmony is elusive. Even adopting a pet from a shelter can be smoother than navigating these dynamics. As renowned psychologist Joyce Paveo writes in The Family of Adoption, adoption isn't about finding a child for a family. It's about finding a family for a child. The Natalia Grace case is more than just a drama-filled saga. It's a poignant reminder of love, responsibility, and empathy. Story 4. In 2019, Taipei, Taiwan, on a quiet night in the upscale residential area of DA and District, the sound of an ambulance siren pierced the peaceful atmosphere. Kevin Lin, a successful businessman and well-known philanthropist, was found dead at the bottom of the stairs of his luxury villa. His wife, Sophia Chun, called the ambulance, saying it was an accident due to him slipping and falling while drunk. But as hidden secrets gradually emerged, Kevin's death became the beginning of a complex and surprising series of conspiracies. Kevin Lin, 38, is a successful entrepreneur, famous not only in Taipei but also throughout Asia in the technology field. Born into a middle-class family in a bustling neighborhood in Taipei, Kevin showed a sharp intellect and a special curiosity for technology from a young age. As a high school student, he won many awards in programming competitions, which helped him receive a full scholarship to one of the top technology universities in Taiwan. After graduating with an excellent degree, Kevin did not choose to work for large corporations but instead started his entrepreneurial path with a bold vision. In 2010, Kevin founded LTS, a company focused on developing software to help businesses optimize their operational processes. Initially, the company operated with only 5 employees in a small office, but thanks to Kevin's excellent leadership and strategic vision, LTS quickly became one of the leading software companies in Taiwan, serving customers globally. By 2021, LTS had reached a value of $200 million, with a team of more than 500 employees and branches in many countries. This success not only made Kevin one of the prominent entrepreneurs in Taiwan, but also brought him admiration from the media and the community. However, Kevin did not stop at building his technology empire. He spent a significant portion of the company's profits to invest in community projects, especially in the fields of education and health. Kevin's philanthropy is an important part of his image. He has donated millions of USD to build schools in remote rural areas in Taiwan, helping thousands of children have access to quality education. In addition, Kevin also sponsors medical research projects to improve the public healthcare system, especially programs that provide free vaccines and rare disease treatments. Not only famous for his business success and philanthropy, Kevin is also known for his professional and humble working style. Despite being a highly influential figure, he always appears at events with a simple style, creating a sense of closeness to everyone. Kevin often shares that his biggest motivation is not money but the desire to use technology to change people's lives, especially those who are disadvantaged in society. In 2012, just 2 years after founding LTS, Kevin Lin began to make a name for himself in the technology industry in Taiwan. At this time, he regularly attended major technology conferences to expand his network of partners and explore new opportunities. At one of the most important conferences of that year in Taipei, Kevin met Sophia Chen, the woman who would later become an indispensable part of his life. Sophia Chen, then 28 years old, was a prominent figure with a prestigious background. The only daughter of a retired Supreme Court justice, Sophia grew up in an upper-class environment and received an excellent education at the world's top universities. After graduating with a degree in business administration from Harvard, she returned to Taiwan and worked in strategy consulting, where she quickly distinguished herself through major projects. Not only does Sophia have a solid career, she also possesses a confident demeanor, intelligence, and charm, which always makes her stand out at major events. When meeting Sophia at the conference, Kevin was immediately attracted by her intelligence, confidence, and elegance. He, who was used to pressure and competition in business, felt a difference in Sophia, a sophistication that few women he had ever met. Meanwhile, Sophia was also attracted by Kevin's great ambition and confidence. For Sophia, Kevin is the embodiment of a young man who can turn bold dreams into reality, something she has always admired. The initial meeting quickly became a bridge between the two. After the conference, they kept in touch regularly, from work emails to meetings at luxury cafes in Taipei. Though they come from different worlds, Kevin with his self-made businessman simplicity and Sophia with his upper-class sophistication, they find a rare connection. Kevin loves Sophia's insight and acumen for the world, while Sophia admires Kevin's ability to overcome challenges to build his own empire. Kevin and Sophia's love story quickly became a topic of discussion among businessmen and the upper class in Taiwan. They were not only a perfect couple in appearance but also complemented each other in every aspect of life. Sophia began to appear with Kevin at technology and charity events organized by him, creating the image of a powerful and graceful woman who always supported her husband. Kevin, with Sophia's encouragement and support, became more and more confident in expanding the LTS company. After only a year of dating, Kevin and Sophia decided to get married in 2013. Their wedding was a lavish event, held at a 5-star hotel in downtown Taipei. This was not just a wedding but also a high-class festival, with the participation of more than 500 guests, including powerful figures in the business, political, and legal worlds. Sophia appeared in a wedding dress designed by a famous designer, while Kevin, in an elegant black suit, always smiled brightly as he stood next to his bride. Not only a personal event, Kevin and Sophia's wedding was also considered an important milestone in Kevin's career, when he officially became a part of Taiwan's upper class. Marriage not only provided Kevin with the perfect partner but also expanded his network of relationships thanks to Sophia's family's fame and influence. Kevin Lin and Sophia Chen's marriage, once considered a symbol of Taipei's elite perfection, began to fall apart in 2016. As Kevin became increasingly immersed in work, expanding LTS and pursuing his global ambitions, he gradually spent less time with his family. Long business trips, endless meetings, and the pressure of taking the company to new heights turned Kevin into a husband who was rarely present in Sophia's life. Sophia, who had accompanied Kevin to every event, began to feel lonely and abandoned. She couldn't understand why a successful man like Kevin didn't realize that his indifference was hurting his wife. Their conversations gradually became less frequent and often ended in minor conflicts, mostly related to different financial views. Kevin has always focused on long-term investing to maintain stability, while Sophia wants to enjoy the wealth they have achieved. This situation became worse in 2018 when Sophia met Victor Ei Chu, a financial advisor at a charity gala. Victor, young, handsome, and talented, quickly attracted Sophia with the attention she had not received from Kevin for many years. Initially, the relationship between Sophia and Victor was only at work when Victor gave advice on financial management. However, Victor's sophistication in speaking and his elegance gradually won Sophia's heart. This relationship quickly crossed the line. They began to meet more often, first at charity and financial meetings, then on private dates at fancy restaurants. Victor, with his financial expertise, not only provided Sophia with a sense of love, but also helped her plan to control Kevin's assets. Sophia began to secretly transfer large sums of money from the joint account into separate investment channels under his name. Kevin, despite being busy with work, was not someone who easily ignored unusual signs. He began to notice large sums of money being withdrawn from the joint account for no apparent reason. Sophia's spending habits became increasingly extravagant, from luxury shopping to expensive trips that she explained as necessary to maintain her connections in the upper class. However, her explanations did not convince Kevin. In mid-2018, Kevin decided to take action. He hired a private investigator, Edward Wong, to investigate Sophia's activities. Edward, known for his discreet and efficient information-gathering skills, began to follow Sophia. Within the first weeks, Edward realized that Victor H. He was not just an ordinary financial advisor but had a deep relationship with Sophia. Edward gathered evidence from various sources, including unusual financial transactions that Sophia made under Victor's guidance. He discovered that Victor had helped Sophia open offshore bank accounts, where she secretly transferred money from the joint account. The evidence also included photos and videos from surveillance cameras, recording Sophia and Victor meeting at luxury hotels and attending non-work events together. One evening, Edward sent Kevin a detailed document. Not only were there shady financial transactions, but there was also a video of Sophia and Victor walking hand-in-hand into a five-star hotel in downtown Taipei. The evidence was a blow to Kevin, who had once believed Sophia was his ideal partner. However, Sophia Chen's greed knew no bounds. After she began controlling the finances of her and Kevin's joint account, she began to covet the entire fortune Kevin had built up over the years. Victor H.U., her lover and financial advisor, played a central role in devising sophisticated strategies to achieve this goal. Victor advised Sophia on how to set up offshore bank accounts in countries with strict financial secrecy policies. These accounts not only helped her hide the money transfers, but also prepared her for the ultimate plan, transferring all of Kevin's assets after his death. However, Kevin's plans for divorce in early 2019 sent Sophia into a panic. Kevin, after gathering enough evidence of his wife's betrayal, decided to take legal steps to protect his assets and end the rocky marriage. These news, although not yet officially announced, made Sophia fear losing everything. She knew more than anyone that if the divorce went through, her irregular financial transactions and extramarital affair with Victor would be exposed in court. This would not only put Sophia in a precarious financial situation but also destroy the perfect reputation she had always maintained. In desperation and insatiable greed, Sophia began to think about eliminating Kevin to gain complete control of the assets. Victor, who was no longer just a financial advisor, became an accomplice as he continued to push Sophia into action. After agreeing to eliminate Kevin, Sophia Chen and Victor H.U. began to meticulously plan to make his death look like an accident. Both were well aware that any mistake could lead to catastrophic consequences for themselves, so they studied every detail carefully. Victor, with his experience in analyzing situations and his calculating mind, proposed the idea of staging an accident at home. He believed that Kevin's familiar surroundings would help distract the investigation, while Sophia used the image of a devoted wife to cover up his actions. Victor instructed Sophia to make everything look like an unfortunate accident. He instructed her to make small adjustments to the house without raising suspicion, such as moving a rug or furniture appropriately. They also agreed on January 15, 2019 as the date for the plan, when Kevin attended a large corporate party at the Grand Hyatt Taipei. This was the perfect occasion because Kevin, who was well known in the business world, would easily let his guard down after a long night of drinking and socializing. On the evening of January 15, 2019, Kevin attended the corporate party at the luxury hotel. As an important figure, he spent the evening chatting with partners and colleagues. Glasses of wine and cocktails were continuously brought, which Kevin did not refuse. He left the party at nearly 2 a.m. in a drunken state. When he returned to the villa, security cameras recorded Kevin getting out of the car, staggering and struggling to keep his balance. The clock on the security system showed the time as 2:15 a.m. Sophia, who had prepared everything in advance, opened the door, pretending to be concerned when she saw that her husband was drunk. She helped Kevin into the house, pretending to take care of him and guiding him to the bedroom. Sophia led Kevin to the stairs, where she had deliberately moved a rug on the steps. This rug was the key to her and Victor's plan, as it created a situation where Kevin could easily lose his balance and fall. At the foot of the stairs, Kevin, in a semi-conscious state, mumbled a few incoherent sentences. Sophia, still calm, began to provoke him with aggressive questions. The argument lasted for several minutes, but Kevin, who was drunk, could not control his emotions. At that moment, Sophia took advantage of Kevin's lack of vigilance and pushed him down the stairs. Kevin fell from a great height, his head hitting the marble steps. The impact echoed clearly in the quiet night, and his body lay motionless at the foot of the stairs. Sophia slowly walked down, saw blood on the floor, confirmed that Kevin had died on the spot from severe head trauma. Sophia quickly regained her composure and began to stage the scene. She adjusted the position of the rug, making it lie more neatly, to create the impression that Kevin had slipped on his own. The objects in Kevin's hands, including his phone and keys, were placed naturally around his body to increase the convincing effect. The clock struck 2:30 a.m. and Sophia called the emergency services, her voice calm and cold. During the call, she claimed that her husband had accidentally fallen down the stairs while drunk. When the emergency team arrived, Sophia stood at the door, her face tired but still calm. She led them into the house, pointed to Kevin's motionless body, and repeated the story of the accident. When the police arrived to investigate the scene, Sophia was cooperative, answering each question in detail but not excessively. She emphasized that Kevin had drunk a lot at the party, and when he returned home, he lost his balance, leading to his fatal fall. The investigation team documented the scene, took photos and took statements, and initially the police noted that there were no signs of a struggle or any unusual marks. Bloodstains on the stairs and floor, along with Kevin's blood alcohol level of 0.14%, further supported the theory that he had fallen due to intoxication. Sophia Chun, who had been well prepared, answered all the police's questions calmly. She explained that Kevin had drunk a lot at a business party and often lost his balance when drunk. The investigation team, after collecting data and taking photos of the scene, concluded that this was an accident and quickly closed the case. In the following weeks, Sophia took over LTS, the software company Kevin founded. She quickly reorganized the management team, using her inheritance to control all the assets and business operations. However, Sophia's haste in taking control of the assets aroused suspicions in Kevin's family, especially his younger brother, Daniel Lin. Daniel Lin, who had always been close to his brother, did not believe that Kevin could be so careless as to fall down the stairs while drunk. While cleaning Kevin's office at the villa, Daniel discovered a diary that Kevin often used to write down personal plans and thoughts. In recent diary entries, Kevin has mentioned his intention to divorce Sophia because he discovered signs of financial fraud in her. He wrote about unusual withdrawals from the joint account and shady transactions involving a man named Victor A. Chu. This sheds light on why Sophia acted so hastily to take over the property after Kevin's death. Daniel continues to investigate in his own way. While talking to some people who used to work at the villa, he receives important information from Mei Wang, a former maid. Mei reveals that on the night of the accident, Sophia asked all the staff to leave the villa very early, saying that she wanted to have private space to pick up Kevin after the party. This is completely different from Sophia's usual routine, who always requires staff to be available 24/7. The coincidence between the information from the diary and May's testimony makes Daniel believe that Kevin's death was not an accident. He immediately reported his suspicions to the police, requesting that the investigation be reopened. After the case file was reopened, Dr. Alan Chu, a leading forensic expert, was invited to reanalyze the evidence. Dr. Chu focused on the injuries to Kevin's head and concluded that the injuries were not consistent with a typical fall down the stairs. In particular, the angle of impact and the force of impact suggested that Kevin had not simply slipped but had been pushed with great force from behind. Another clue came from the home security camera, which had not been carefully examined during the initial investigation. The video recorded Sophia adjusting the rug on the stairs before Kevin returned. This action, while subtle, was considered unusual when combined with other evidence. Meanwhile, the financial investigation into Sophia led to an important discovery transactions involving a man named Victor A. Chu. Victor, who was believed to be Sophia's financial partner, was wanted for financial fraud. On March 5, 2022, Victor was arrested at a high-end apartment in Taipei. During interrogation, under pressure from the police and clear financial evidence, Victor began to confess. He claimed that he had assisted Sophia in planning Kevin's murder, from setting up the crime scene to coaching her on how to answer police questions. Victor even provided details about Sophia deliberately adjusting the carpet and waiting for the right moment to strike. Victor's confession was the key to the police officially arresting Sophia Chun. When she was taken to the police station, Sophia tried to remain calm and denied all charges. However, faced with clear evidence from forensics, security cameras, and Victor's testimony, she could no longer hide the truth. Sophia and Victor were charged with murder, financial fraud, and conspiracy to embezzle property. Both were detained pending trial, while Taiwanese public opinion continuously condemned their cold and cruel behavior. The trial of Sophia Chun and Victor A. Chu took place on September 15, 2022 at the Taipei District Court, attracting widespread attention from Taiwanese public opinion. This was not only a trial for murder but also exposed the greedy and cruel nature of people who used to be the most powerful elite. In court, the prosecutors presented a series of important evidence. First, there were financial transactions involving Sophia and Victor, including money transfers to offshore bank accounts. These funds were shown to be from Kevin and Sophia's joint assets, but were secretly used by Sophia for her own purposes. Next, the prosecutor presented text messages exchanged between Victor and Sophia, detailing the murder plan. These messages not only detailed how the crime scene was staged, but also showed the cold calculation of both parties in covering up the crime. In addition, testimony from witnesses including Daniel Lin, Mei Wang, and forensic experts further reinforced the truth. Kevin's younger brother Daniel recounted details from his brother's diary, including suspicions about Sophia's financial fraud and Kevin's intention to divorce. Mei Wang, the former maid, provided important information about Sophia's unusual request on the night of the crime. Forensic expert Dr. Alan Cho concluded that Kevin's injuries were not consistent with a normal fall down the stairs, asserting that he had been pushed. The verdict was announced on November 4, 2022. Sophia was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole, becoming a symbol of the fall from ambition. Meanwhile, Victor A. Chiu, for cooperating with the prosecutor, received a 25-year prison sentence. The trial ended with satisfaction from Kevin's family and the public, bringing justice to a man who lost his life because of greed and betrayal. Story 5. A shocking case in Taipei, Taiwan 2022. A stormy night on a deserted road near Yangmingshan National Park becomes the setting for a shocking case. Huang Qixin, a young man, is found dead in what appears to be a routine car accident. But strange traces at the scene and protests from the victim's family force the police to reopen the case. Behind Huang's death lies a series of events intertwined with jealousy, betrayal, and dark secrets hidden by an unlikely person. Chang Weihan, 37, has devoted his entire career to the Taipei police force. Respected by his colleagues and loved by the community, Chang is not only a dedicated police officer, but also a person of great influence in raising public safety awareness. With a stern appearance but a warm heart, Chang is often invited to participate in public safety education and propaganda programs. In 2015, during a traffic safety program for elementary school students, Chang met Lu Meiling, a dedicated teacher at a local elementary school. Meiling, then 28, is a smart, gentle woman who is passionate about educating children. With a warm smile and passionate eyes, she quickly caught Chang's attention from the first meeting. The program went smoothly, with active participation from students and teachers. Chang, as a speaker, presented on the importance of traffic safety and how to avoid everyday risks. Mei Ling, sitting in the front row, listened attentively and did not hesitate to ask questions about how to improve children's safety awareness. Their interactions during the program were the beginning of a promising romantic relationship. After the event, Chang and Mei Ling began to communicate more frequently. At first it was just work-related discussions, but gradually they realized that they had a lot in common. They both shared deep values of responsibility to the community and enthusiasm for their work. Chang felt a gentleness and understanding in Mei Ling that he had never seen in other women. Meanwhile, Mei Ling was attracted to Cheng's dedication and integrity, a man who was not only strong in his role as a police officer, but also had a kind heart. The initial conversations gradually turned into regular meetings. They take walks in the park together, attend community events, and spend time learning about each other's interests and ideals. Chang did not hesitate to spend his few days off to go to the elementary school where Mei Ling worked, helping her organize extracurricular activities for the students. Every moment together only deepened the bond between them. After 2 years of dating, Chang and Mei Ling decided to take their relationship to the next level. They officially announced their plans to get married in early 2017, receiving warm blessings from family, friends, and colleagues. Their wedding took place in the fall of that year at a luxury hotel in Dan District, Taipei, in a cozy yet solemn atmosphere. The ceremony was held in the presence of hundreds of guests, including Cheng's colleagues at the police station and teachers from Mei Ling's school. The couple appeared radiant amid everyone's cheers and blessings. Mei Ling, in an exquisite wedding dress, held Cheng's hand tightly as they walked down the aisle. Chang, in a neat police suit, could not hide the happiness on his face. In addition to the traditional rituals, the wedding also had emotional moments when Chang thanked Mei Ling for bringing light to his life, a life that was associated with pressure and responsibility. In response, Mei Ling shared that Chang was the one who gave her a sense of security and love, two things she had always longed for. After the wedding ceremony, the party was held with vibrant music and meaningful performances from friends and colleagues. The blessings, loud laughter, and happy eyes of the couple made the night an unforgettable memory for all the attendees. Chang Weihan and Lu Meiling's married life seemed perfect. Chang continued to advance in his career, becoming a famous police officer at the Taipei Police Department. His job provided financial stability, allowing him to buy a cozy apartment in Sanni District, one of Taipei's busiest and most livable areas. Mei Ling, meanwhile, remained committed to her teaching job and was well-liked by her colleagues and students. However, beneath the idealistic facade, cracks began to appear in their relationship. Cheng's job required him to work overtime, handle complex cases, and sometimes be away from home for days at a time. Although Mei Ling understood her husband's professional responsibilities, his absence gradually made her feel abandoned. Chang, who had a strong personality, began to exert control over family decisions. He often demanded that Mei Ling be informed of everything she did, from her work schedule to her meetings with friends. Although Cheng's attitude came from a place of concern, it made Mei Ling feel suffocated. Their conversations gradually became less frequent, replaced by petty arguments that neither of them knew how to resolve thoroughly. By 2021, as their relationship grew colder, Mei Ling accidentally reconnected with her ex, Huang Chia-Chin, through social media. Huang, then 35, was a marketing manager at a tech company in Taichung. Before meeting Chang, Mei Ling and Huang had dated for 5 years, but the relationship ended amicably in 2013 when they both decided to focus on their respective careers. At first, their reconnection consisted of simple text messages. They reminisced about old times and shared about their current lives. However, before long, Mei Ling and Huang's relationship grew beyond friendship. Huang, with his sensitivity and listening skills, gave Mei Ling the sense of care she had been lacking in her marriage to Chang. They began texting frequently, even late at night. The lengthy conversations, which covered everything from work to personal life, gradually made Mei Ling realize that her feelings for Huang had not completely disappeared. When Huang suggested meeting in person, Mei Ling hesitated but eventually agreed. Using the excuse of visiting friends in Taichung, Mei Ling made unexplained trips where she and Huang met. The initial meetings were just coffee dates or walks, but gradually, the two could not hide their feelings for each other. Mei Ling, caught up in the new feeling and Huang's attention, began to hide these trips from her husband. Chang, a police officer with a keen intuition, quickly noticed a change in Mei Ling's behavior. She often picked up her phone at night, texting while pretending to be a colleague or a student's parent. Every time she went to Taichung, Mei Ling always gave vague reasons about work or friends. Once, in a conversation with a colleague, Chang heard that Mei Ling had been seen having dinner with a man in Taichung. Initially, he dismissed the thought that his wife might be cheating. Chang believes that Mei Ling is an honest and responsible person, but his intuition does not allow him to completely ignore this. The lingering doubts in Cheng's heart begin to grow. He observed Mei Ling more closely, noticing that she often furtively checked her phone and seemed flustered when he asked about her travels. Chang tried to converse with Mei Ling, but she always tried to avoid him, making him even more uneasy. One night in September 2022, while Mei Ling was fast asleep, Chung Wei-han could not suppress the doubts that were tormenting his mind. In the dim light of the bedroom, Chung quietly took Mei Ling's phone from the bedside table. With the basic technological skills he had learned from his police work, Chung quickly accessed the device without leaving a trace. The phone screen lit up, and within seconds, Chung found incriminating messages and photos between Mei Ling and Huang Qiaqing. The conversations were not only filled with intimacy, but also contained words expressing the deep love and attachment between the two. Some pictures show them together on secret dates in Taichung, something Mei Ling has been trying to keep hidden all this time. Chung felt like his whole world was falling apart. The betrayal by the wife he once trusted filled him with pain, rage, and humiliation. The promises he made on their wedding day, the memories he once cherished, were now nothing more than stabs to his self-esteem. Chung sat down on the bed, his hands shaking as he continued to scroll through the messages, each word like a knife cutting deeper into his already wounded heart. In his moment of despair, Chung couldn't share his pain with anyone. As a police officer, he knew he had to maintain a professional image, but deep inside, he felt like a failure to protect the marriage he once thought was perfect. However, the humiliation quickly turned into a burning rage. Chung felt that things couldn't end this way. His years of sacrifice and dedication did not deserve to be trampled by the betrayal of Mei Ling and her ex-lover. In his mind, thoughts of revenge began to appear, at first in vague visions, but gradually becoming clear and sharp. Chung was not a person who was easily moved by impulse. He took his time to think carefully, analyzing each possibility and consequence. He knew that he could not act rashly, because that would not only ruin his career but also land him in trouble with the law. Instead, Chung decided to plan it out in detail, using all his investigative skills and experience to turn his revenge into a perfect game of chess. When deciding to take revenge, Chung Wei-han did not let his emotions cloud his judgment. As a police officer with many years of experience, Chung understood that any mistake could leave evidence and make him a suspect. So he started carefully, using all his skills and knowledge to come up with the perfect plan to eliminate Huang Qiaqing, his wife's lover. In early October 2022, Chung secretly monitored Huang's daily routine. He used advanced surveillance equipment, including hidden cameras and GPS trackers, to track Huang's schedule. During one of Huang's trips to Taipei to meet Mei Ling, Chung sneaked into his car in a public parking lot and installed a tracking device. This allowed Chung to monitor Huang's every move, from business meetings to personal trips. Through the collected data, Chung realized that Huang frequently traveled between Taichung and Taipei and sometimes chose a deserted mountain road near Yangmingshan National Park to avoid traffic. This was the perfect location for Chung to carry out his plan, as this road was rarely traveled, especially at night. On October 15, 2022, a heavy rainstorm swept through the Taipei area, bringing strong winds and heavy rain. Chung saw this as the ideal opportunity to act. Bad weather would reduce attention and hide traces at the scene. Around 10 p.m., Chung drove to the mountain road he had chosen in advance. He parked the car on the side of the road, turned on the hazard lights, and raised the hood to make it look like there was a problem. Dressed in a raincoat and a hood, Chung waited, holding a heavy iron bar hidden in his jacket. Soon, Huang's car appeared on the road. As planned, Huang, who was polite and helpful by nature, stopped when he saw Cheng's hazard lights on. He got out of the car and approached to see if he could help. Seen in the dim light from the headlights, Chung pretended to thank him and gave a brief explanation. When Huang was caught off guard, Chung quickly pulled out the iron bar and struck Huang hard in the head. The first blow knocked Huang to the ground, but Chung did not stop. He continued to hit Huang's head and body several times, making sure there were no signs of life. Once he was sure Huang was dead, Chung began the next step in his plan, staging the scene to look like a traffic accident. He dragged Huang's body into the driver's seat of the car, adjusting his body position and seatbelt to make it appear as if Huang was driving. Chung then drove with Huang's body toward a large tree on the side of the road, stepping on the accelerator and causing the car to crash into the tree trunk. The impact caused damage to the exterior of the car, adding to the credibility of the accident scenario. Next, Chung opened the car door, poured alcohol on Huang's clothes and hands, and placed an empty bottle of alcohol on the passenger seat. These details were designed to make the police believe that Huang was drunk while driving, leading to him losing control and causing the accident. To ensure that no traces were left behind, Chung used gloves to wipe down all surfaces he might have touched, including the steering wheel, door handles, and controls. He also thoroughly checked to make sure he did not leave any personal items that could be related to him at the scene. After finishing everything, Chung left the scene around 1 a.m., driving back home via a different route to avoid detection. The heavy rain helped him hide all traces, from footprints to tire tracks. When he got home, Chung changed his clothes, washed everything, and continued his daily activities as usual, pretending not to know what had happened. In Cheng's mind, the plan had been executed perfectly. He believed that Huang's death would quickly be ruled a drunken traffic accident, and his life would return to normal. But deep down, Cheng did not realize that even the most meticulous plans could not avoid unforeseen factors. Early in the morning of October 16, 2022, passers-by on a mountain road near Yangmingshan National Park discovered a car crashed into a roadside tree. Inside the car was the body of Huang Qixin, his head tilted to one side, with dried blood all around the driver's seat. His clothes reeked of alcohol, and an empty liquor bottle was lying on the passenger seat. The scene looked exactly like a traffic accident caused by a drunk driver. The residents immediately called the police. An investigation team from the Taipei Police Department quickly arrived at the scene. After initial investigation, officers found no signs of collision with another vehicle, no strange footprints, or evidence of other people being involved. They tentatively concluded that it was a simple accident caused by the driver losing control due to drunkenness. However, Huang's family disagreed with this conclusion. Huang's parents, who knew their son's personality and habits well, insisted that he was not a regular drinker and would certainly not drive while drunk. They pressured the police to conduct a more thorough investigation. The case was assigned to Detective Lin Yuchong, a veteran investigator with a knack for spotting details that others would easily overlook. From the beginning of the investigation, Lin noticed that there were many abnormalities at the scene of the accident. First, the injuries on Huang's body did not match those of a car accident. The forensic report showed that the victim's head had many severe bruises, but their location and shape suggested that they were the result of repeated impact from a hard object, not from hitting the steering wheel or car door, as in a normal accident. Next, the autopsy results shocked the investigation team. No alcohol was detected in Huang's blood. This was in stark contrast to the staged crime scene, where Huang's clothes and car seat reeked of alcohol. The discovery of an empty liquor bottle and the presence of alcohol on the victim were clearly an attempt to fool investigators. As they expanded their investigation, Lin and his team searched for traffic security camera data near the crime scene. After hours of searching, they discovered another car near the crime scene around the time of the incident. Based on the license plate, the car was identified as belonging to Cheng Weihan, a veteran police officer at the Taipei Police Department. The suspicions surrounding Cheng led the investigation team to focus on him. After obtaining a search warrant, they discovered surveillance devices that Cheng had used to track Huang, including a GPS tracker and a hidden camera. Data from these devices matched Huang's movements in the weeks leading up to the crime, proving that Cheng had been systematically following Huang. At the same time, the investigation extends into the personal lives of Cheng and his wife, Lu Meiling, revealing an affair between Meiling and Huang. When questioned, Meiling initially denied it, but later admitted that she had reconnected with Huang through social media and had been in a secret relationship. This information provided Cheng with a clear motive: he killed Huang because of his wife's betrayal. On November 5, 2022, Cheng Weihan was arrested by police at his home. Cheng initially denied any involvement in Huang's death. He claimed that he was not present at the scene on the night of the crime and knew nothing about his wife's relationship with Huang. However, when the incontrovertible evidence was presented, including data from traffic cameras, surveillance equipment, and forensic reports, Cheng began to lose his temper. After hours of questioning, he broke down and admitted that he had killed Huang in a fit of rage after discovering his wife's affair. Chang claimed that he had no premeditated intention to kill, but had acted in a moment of loss of control. However, investigators pointed out that the preparation of surveillance equipment, the choice of a remote location, and the staging of a fake crime scene all pointed to a carefully calculated plan. Chang's defense was quickly dismissed. After completing the interrogation, Chang was remanded in custody pending trial. Chang Wei-han's trial began in March 2023 at the Taipei District Court, attracting media and public attention. During the trial, the prosecution, led by experienced lawyers, presented strong evidence that Chang had planned the murder in advance. Surveillance logs kept by Chang himself, detailing Huang Qian's activities, showed deliberate preparation. Traffic camera footage of Cheng's car near the scene on the night of the crime shed light on his presence at the scene of the murder. The forensic report, which concluded that Huang's injuries could not have resulted from a simple traffic accident, played a key role in disproving Cheng's scenario. Huang Qian's family also spoke in court, giving emotional testimony about their irreparable loss. They told of the unfulfilled dreams of Huang, a responsible and passionate son. Their tears and pain deeply moved the jury, making clear the serious consequences of Cheng's actions. The verdict was delivered on June 20, 2023. Chang Wei-han was convicted of first-degree murder. In his sentencing, the judge emphasized that Cheng's actions were not only a betrayal of the public's trust in a police officer, but also cold and calculating. Chang was sentenced to life in prison without parole, bringing to a close a painful and shocking case. Story 6. A tranquil night in Southern California shattered into a nightmare when police received a frantic 911 call. At the scene, they were stunned by the gruesome sight. A middle-aged man bound tightly to a bed, blood pooling from his groin. The savagery of the attack sent chills through even the most seasoned investigators. What had unfolded behind the doors of this seemingly peaceful apartment? And what dark secrets lay behind this horrific crime? Welcome, viewers. Today's case takes us to Garden Grove in Orange County, California, a city known for its vibrant Vietnamese community in Little Saigon. This quiet residential area, home to hardworking immigrant families, rarely sees serious crime. So, news of a brutal domestic violence incident sent shockwaves through the community. Neighbors gathered, whispering in disbelief outside the apartment complex on Flower Street where the crime occurred, struggling to fathom that a tragedy straight out of a movie could happen next door. Some liken the perpetrator to Hon Thursday, the jealous and vengeful woman from classic Vietnamese literature, due to the blind cruelty of the act. In the context of 2010s, America, domestic violence and crimes of passion were not uncommon. But this case stood out for its sheer brutality and a chilling role reversal. This time, the victim was the husband. What drove a loving husband to become the target of a heinous crime committed by the very person who shared his bed? How did a seemingly ordinary marriage spiral into an act of unimaginable savagery? What deeper motives pushed the wife to become the perpetrator? And what hidden truths might lurk behind this tragedy? Catherine Keogh Becker, 48, and her husband, Glenn, nearing 60, lived in a modest Garden Grove apartment. They married in late 2009, but by mid-2011, their marriage was crumbling. Glenn filed for divorce in May 2011, though the couple continued to share the same home while sorting out legalities. On the evening of July 11, 2011, tension hung heavy in their kitchen after an argument about a friend planning to stay over. Catherine Keogh's demeanor was unusually cold. She quietly prepared dinner, a familiar dish, but secretly laced her husband's portion with Ambien, a sleeping pill. Unaware, Glenn only noticed something off when sudden fatigue hit him. As the drug took hold, he grew dizzy and drowsy, retiring early to rest. Once he was unconscious, Catherine set her chilling plan in motion. She retrieved ropes hidden earlier and bound Glenn's hands and feet to the bed's four corners while he lay helpless. Every detail was meticulously planned, revealing this was no impulsive act. But then, in a shocking twist, Catherine didn't flee after the crime. She calmly called 911, reporting that her husband was bleeding and needed help. When paramedics and police arrived near 11 p.m., they were horrified by the scene. A naked man tied to the bed, his groin drenched in blood. Catherine stood nearby, coolly telling officers he deserved it, showing no trace of remorse. She was immediately restrained and arrested, while Glenn, still conscious despite excruciating pain, was rushed by ambulance to UCI Medical Center in Orange County. Police searched the scene and found the victim's severed male organ in the garbage disposal, nearly destroyed. Doctors attempted reconstructive surgery, but the damage was too severe and the severed part too mangled, rendering the effort futile. Glenn survived, able to regain normal urinary function, but he permanently lost his male function due to the irreparable loss. The psychological toll was even graver than the physical. At trial, Glenn tearfully shared that he felt he hadn't survived that fateful night. The victim's identity emerged: Glenn X, Catherine Q's lawful husband. Note: court records list the victim only as Glenn to protect his privacy, withholding his full surname. The brutal attack by his own wife left the public reeling. Questions swirled. What could drive a wife to such cruelty against her husband? The victim, Glenn Becker, was 59 or 60 at the time of the 2011 incident. A Caucasian American, he was described as kind and considerate. Before marrying Catherine, Glenn had been married to Manal Salomon for 8 years, divorcing in 2002. Salomon, devastated by the news, described her ex-husband as a truly good man who cared deeply for his wife. To those who knew him, Glenn was gentle and attentive. After years of being single, Glenn met Catherine Q. Some sources claim they met at a gym. Others say through a church community. Either way, sparks flew quickly. They married in late 2009, when Catherine was 46 and Glenn around 56, with no children together. Early on, their life in the Flower Street apartment seemed peaceful. Glenn had his own job and social circle, even engaging with the Vietnamese community through his wife, occasionally attending church together. Friends noted his calm, soft-spoken nature, but by mid-2011, their marriage deteriorated. Glenn filed for divorce in May, likely feeling the relationship was beyond repair. Catherine was devastated and enraged by her husband's decision to leave. Notably, during the divorce proceedings, Glenn rekindled a relationship with an old girlfriend. Investigators later determined this affair sparked Catherine's blinding jealousy. For Glenn, it may have been a pursuit of new happiness after a failed marriage, but it unwittingly ignited a tragedy. Forced to cohabitate due to financial constraints, the couple's home became a pressure cooker. Frequent arguments erupted, even over trivial matters, like the dispute about a friend staying over the night of the crime. After surviving the attack, Glenn faced profound physical and emotional scars. Physically, he lost his male function entirely, forced to live without intimacy for the rest of his life. Psychologically, he suffered from PTSD and severe depression. At trial, he described an overwhelming sense of loss, stating he could never be fully happy again. He likened his pain to a life sentence inflicted by his wife, a haunting testament to the enduring torment, far outlasting any prison sentence the perpetrator might face. Immediately after the incident, Garden Grove police launched a thorough investigation. This wasn't a complex whodunit mystery. The perpetrator, Catherine Q, was unmistakably the wife. Yet, authorities needed to unravel the chilling precision of the crime and the true motives behind such a barbaric act. At the scene, investigators collected critical evidence: ropes used to bind the victim, a 10-inch blood-stained kitchen knife found near the bed, the weapon of the crime. In the kitchen sink, police recovered fragments of the victim's male organ in the garbage disposal, along with leftover food from the table. Blood tests confirmed the presence of Ambien, a sedative, in Glenn's system, proving he was drugged before the attack. The crime scene was meticulously preserved, with photos taken and blood samples collected for forensic analysis. Most disturbingly, a search of the bedroom uncovered a hidden voice-activated recorder. Catherine had deliberately recorded the entire assault, capturing a chilling audio. The tape became a pivotal piece of evidence. Catherine's voice is heard shouting, "You deserve it!" 3 times, followed by Glenn's agonized screams. Then came the gruesome sound of the garbage disposal grinding. This recording unequivocally proved Catherine's calm intent, demolishing any claim that the act was a spontaneous outburst of anger. Her decision to record the crime suggested a desire to preserve her act of vengeance, or to teach her husband a lesson, further exposing her calculated cruelty. Catherine Keogh was arrested at the scene and taken to Orange County Jail, held on a staggering $1 million bail, a figure reflecting the severity of the charges. At the police station, the Vietnamese-American woman was uncooperative, remaining silent during questioning and coldly repeating that her husband deserved it. Lieutenant Jeff Nightingale, spokesperson for the Garden Grove Police Department, noted that initially, no one knew why Catherine had committed such an act, or whether it was premeditated or impulsive. However, investigators soon leaned toward the conclusion that this was a meticulously planned crime aimed at inflicting maximum pain and permanent damage, not a momentary loss of control. Nightingale himself admitted, "This is horrific and appalling. We're working to determine if this woman's savage act was premeditated to rob her husband of a vital part of his body and cause him unbearable physical and emotional suffering." The motive began to crystallize as police gathered statements from those involved. Glenn, having survived the critical ordeal, recounted the events. The argument over a friend staying over, eating dinner, and then succumbing to sudden exhaustion, leaving him vulnerable to his wife's attack. He confirmed the ongoing divorce proceedings and admitted to reconnecting with an ex-girlfriend, which deeply upset and enraged Catherine. Neighbors and friends provided further insight, confirming the couple's strained relationship and Catherine's controlling, jealous behavior. A neighbor across the street recalled seeing police cars and ambulances clogging the road that night. The next morning, media frenzy erupted, with headlines shocking the public. "This is only the second time we've heard of a wife doing this to her husband out of jealousy. It's terrifying," a neighbor told reporters, visibly shaken. Within days, authorities compiled a robust case against Catherine Keogh, supported by overwhelming evidence. The charges were extensive: aggravated mayhem, torture, poisoning, false imprisonment, assault with a deadly weapon, administering drugs to commit a felony, and spousal abuse. The core charges, torture and aggravated mayhem, reflected the intent to cause permanent harm. With compelling evidence, the California grand jury indicted Catherine Keogh on January 4, 2012, bypassing a preliminary hearing due to the case's clear foundation. Prosecutors and authorities concluded that Catherine's motive stemmed from blind jealousy and a thirst for revenge. Furious that her husband sought a divorce to reunite with an ex-lover, she aimed to teach him a lesson he'd never forget by stripping him of his manhood. The attack occurred exactly 2 months after Glenn filed for divorce, underscoring its deliberate, vengeful nature. During the investigation, Catherine countered with allegations that she was the victim, claiming emotional and sexual abuse by Glenn, claims to be debated at trial. However, investigators believed Catherine was the calculated orchestrator, methodically executing the crime, from preparing the sedative and ropes to recording the act and mutilating her husband. Lieutenant Nightingale compared the case to the infamous 1993 Lorena Bobbitt case, where a wife similarly mutilated her husband. "In my 22 years on the force, this is only the second time I've seen something this horrific since Lorena Bobbitt," he said. While the Bobbitt case was framed as a reaction to domestic abuse, with Lorena claiming she acted in a panic state, Catherine Keogh's crime stood apart. A calculated act of torture driven by jealousy, not a typical domestic violence scenario. With a solid investigation, the case moved to trial, leaving the public eager to see how the courtroom drama would unfold, especially with Catherine's claims of being abused. Would they hold up as a mitigating factor, or were they a defense tactic? The truth would emerge in the gripping trial ahead. Catherine Keogh Becker, possibly born Tran Nguyen, entered the world on March 10, 1963, in Vietnam. Her childhood unfolded amid the chaos of the Vietnam War, marked by turmoil and hardship. She later claimed to have suffered abuse and assault as a young girl in her homeland, leaving deep psychological scars. While it's unclear when she immigrated to the U.S., Catherine was part of the Vietnamese diaspora building new lives in California. By her late 40s, she had settled in Orange County, working as a real estate agent. To outsiders, Catherine appeared unassuming, petite at about 5 feet 1 inch, reserved and with no criminal record. She lived quietly, occasionally attending church. No one could have imagined this soft-spoken, middle-aged woman capable of such a monstrous act. In her personal life, Catherine had been married before meeting Glenn, though details about her prior husband are scarce. In 2009, she married Glenn Becker, a decade her senior. Their marriage, lasting just over a year, grew strained as Catherine's jealousy and controlling nature surfaced. Possibly shaped by past abandonment or trauma, she developed an intense emotional dependence on Glenn. When he grew distant and proposed divorce, her mental state unraveled. Friends noted her suspicions of Glenn's infidelity and her fear of being left alone in her later years. These emotions festered into rage and a desire for retribution. Catherine alleged that during their marriage, Glenn forced her into painful, perverse sexual acts and verbally demeaned her. No independent evidence has fully substantiated these claims. They may hold some truth or could have been exaggerated to justify her actions. What's clear is that learning of Glenn's renewed contact with an ex-girlfriend pushed Catherine over the edge. Catherine's defense attorney argued that her mental state had fractured from reality at the time of the crime, claiming she was gripped by a psychotic episode fueled by deep trauma and overwhelming jealousy. However, the chilling sequence of events told a different story. She deliberately purchased sleeping pills, carefully timed her attack, and set up a voice-activated recorder. These cold, calculated actions revealed that Catherine Q was fully aware of her deeds, not acting in an unconscious daze. While awaiting trial at age 50, she became a media sensation, branded with lurid headlines like the wife who mutilated her husband. Western outlets drew parallels to Lorena Bobbitt, the American woman notorious for a similar act in 1993. Unlike Bobbitt, who was acquitted due to prior abuse by her husband, Catherine faced grave charges with little leniency. From a criminal psychology perspective, experts suggested she suffered from a Wan Thursday syndrome, a toxic blend of blind jealousy and unresolved trauma that transformed her into a ruthless perpetrator. In her moment of vengeance, she seemed convinced that Glenn deserved excruciating punishment. Her aim wasn't to send him to the grave, evidenced by her 911 call to save him, but to condemn him to a life of torment. This rare, extreme psychological profile in women underscored a profound distortion driven by festering resentment. The trial commenced in April 2013 at the Orange County Superior Court in California. Catherine, pleading not guilty, faced a jury tasked with judging her heinous act. The case's shocking rarity and brutality captivated American and international audiences. Led by Deputy District Attorney John Crystal, the prosecution painted a stark portrait of a vengeful wife driven by jealousy to utterly destroy her husband's manhood. Crystal detailed her cruelty, drugging Glenn with Ambien, binding him to the bed, severing his male organ, and grinding it in the garbage disposal. Acts of unparalleled savagery. This woman went to every length to annihilate his masculinity, Crystal declared. Her actions stemmed from envy, vanity, and spiteful jealousy. Prosecutors argued her motive was unmistakable. Fury over Glenn's rekindled romance with an ex-girlfriend and his filing for divorce. They presented a compelling chain of evidence. The divorce papers, the argument that fateful night, traces of Ambien in Glenn's system, the ropes, the bloodied knife, and the hidden recorder. The trial's most harrowing moment came when the audio was played in court. The room fell silent as Catherine's voice screamed, "You deserve it," 3 times, followed by Glenn's agonized cries and the chilling grind of the disposal. Jurors recoiled at her callous demeanor. Crystal asserted she committed torture, not to kill, but to rob Glenn of everything but his life, leaving him permanently maimed. She stripped him of all but his breath, he said, urging the severest punishment under the law. In contrast, Catherine's defense, led by public defender Frank Bitar, portrayed her as a victim of a tragic life and her husband's cruelty. Bitar told the jury that Catherine suffered from mental disorders rooted in childhood abuse in Vietnam, traumas that remained unhealed after her immigration to America. In her marriage to Glenn, she endured months of alleged sexual and verbal abuse, including demands for painful, perverse acts that tormented her physically and emotionally. Biddar argued that on the night of the crime, she was detached from reality, overwhelmed by accumulated pain and jealousy. He urged the jury to view her act as a momentary lapse, not deliberate torture or mayhem, and sought a reduced charge of assault driven by emotional distress. The trial unfolded over days, laden with raw emotional testimony. Glenn took the stand, confronting his former wife, his voice quivering as he relived that night's horror. He described the searing physical pain and devastating psychological trauma, stating, "She killed me that night," implying his life was irrevocably shattered. He admitted to battling despair, but was striving to recover, though "I'll never be whole again." His words moved many in the courtroom to tears, making it difficult for the jury to empathize with Catherine's defense. On April 29, 2013, the jury delivered its verdict. Catherine Kiew was guilty of torture and aggravated mayhem, convicted on all major charges. She sat silently, head bowed, as the decision was read. Under California law, the torture charge carried a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. On June 28, 2013, the court sentenced her to life with the possibility of parole after a minimum of 7 years. This offered a theoretical chance for release, but in practice, parole was unlikely, effectively equating to a lifelong sentence. Glenn, present at sentencing, stated, "I hope this is the last time I ever see her." He expressed partial relief that justice served, but called it still a sad day as it reopened his wounds. Judge Richard F. Toohey underscored the crime's brutality. "In my 24 years on the bench, I've seen many murders. Her calculated, cold, and heartless act was no different from first-degree murder. This framed her actions as akin to premeditated killing, despite Glenn's survival." Prosecutor Crystal, satisfied with the outcome, said, "The perpetrator deserves life for what she inflicted." He added somberly that Glenn was the one truly serving a life sentence, forced to live with the consequences. Catherine was transferred to the Central California Women's Facility, CCWF, to begin her prison term. Records show her behavior in custody is average, with scant details released. Given the severity of her torture conviction, public sentiment holds that early parole is highly improbable. The Catherine Q. Becker case sent shockwaves through the public and media, from the U.S. to Vietnam, where newspapers and TV shows dissected it from every angle. On The Talk, host Sharon Osbourne sparked outrage by joking about the crime, calling it intriguing, prompting widespread backlash for trivializing violence. Co-host Sarah Gilbert condemned this as a double standard, noting that no one would laugh if a woman were similarly mutilated. This ignited broader discussions about societal views on gendered violence, revealing how violence against men is often downplayed, a bias that demands change. In the Vietnamese community, the case became a cautionary tale about jealousy's dark side, with Catherine labeled a modern Hone Thursday, symbolizing how unchecked envy can turn human into monster. The case highlighted that domestic violence devastates regardless of gender. While society often focuses on women as victims, this showed men like Glenn deserve equal compassion and protection. Unresolved questions remain, such as whether Catherine truly suffered abuse from Glenn. The court acknowledged her possible trauma, but deemed her vengeful act unjustifiable. If she was abused, the tragedy deepens. Instead of seeking legal or community aid, she became a criminal, destroying both Glenn's life and her own. This underscores the danger of untreated psychological distress, which can lead to unthinkable crimes. Conversely, if her abuse claims were fabricated, the case starkly illustrates how personal hatred and selfishness can drive extreme evil. Unable to accept Glenn's departure, Catherine chose the most barbaric retaliation, defying law and humanity. The result? 2 lives ruined. Glenn living in torment, Catherine stripped of freedom and future. This case sounds an alarm about the need to control emotions and resolve marital conflicts healthily. Jealousy is natural but unchecked. It becomes a psychological poison. Catherine's story shows how far hatred can erode humanity. The lesson? In strained relationships, especially marriages, seek legal counsel, therapy, or support from loved ones. Violence is never a solution. It only breeds tragedy. Legally, Catherine's harsh sentence affirmed justice without gender bias. Despite her claims of abuse, the court's firm ruling reflected undeniable evidence of a deliberate, heinous crime. This signaled that the legal system exists to punish the guilty and protect victims, regardless of gender or circumstance. If Glenn wronged her in marriage, his faults didn't justify such extra-legal brutality. Catherine transformed from a wife into a criminal, sacrificing her career, dignity, and future. Now, over a decade later, she remains behind bars while Glenn lives quietly, avoiding the public scrutiny. His physical scars have healed, but his emotional wounds may never fully mend, as he said, "My whole life, never whole again." This case closes, a stark warning of the catastrophic consequences of violence born from jealousy. It reminds us that empathy, timely psychological support, and legal recourse can prevent such tragedies. As the rain falls and the night deepens, thank you for being here with me at Radio Night Crime. True crime stories remind us of life's mysteries and the need to stay aware, even in the stillness of the night. If you enjoyed tonight's story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let the sound of the rain lull you to sleep, and until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and let the night keep you company.